Today on Homeworthy, we're taking you inside 4 stunning beach homes, each radiating effortless coastal charm and lived-in elegance. We begin in Bay Head, New Jersey, where a serene seaside retreat comes to life with soothing shades of blue, playful pops of pink, and meaningful treasures. Next, we head to Fire Island to explore a vibrant seaside escape filled with colorful art, lush gardens, and a breezy sea deck for summer entertaining. Then, we travel west to Santa Monica, stepping inside a chic beach bungalow layered with cozy textiles, timeless design, and personal touches that tell a story. Finally, we end in Laguna Beach, touring a coastal California home that perfectly blends relaxed West Coast living with refined Swedish design. This summer, spend the hottest months of the year in style with Homeworthy as we visit the most extraordinary homes around the world. From the sun-soaked shores of the Hamptons to the classic beachfronts of Nantucket to the vibrant courtyards of Morocco, be sure to subscribe to Homeworthy's summer series to make every day feel like a vacation. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Dana Perino. Welcome to my home here in Bay Head, New Jersey. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Dana Perino. I am an anchor and a co-host at Fox News for America's Newsroom from 9 to 11 in the morning, and then The 5 from 5 to 6 p.m. And I'm also on the election coverage team. Little podcast you might have heard of called Perino on Politics is something I do as well. I was the White House press secretary for President George W. Bush. I have had the opportunity to write several books, including one called I Wish Someone Had Told Me. That's a little gem of a book. And this is my home in Bay Head, New Jersey. One of the reasons I'm in Bay Head, New Jersey is because of a dear friend of mine, Lauren Fritz. Lauren Fritz worked at Fox News years ago, and she was assigned to help me kind of get my footing at Fox, and we became really good friends. She invited Peter and myself to come down with our dog, and we got to meet her family. They have a house here, and they've been coming here for years. And we became friends with them, almost like family. And then when we moved down here permanently, Barbara was a decorator for our house before this one and for this one. So I have to say, I probably am an interior designer's dream client. I outsource and I say yes. So Barbara Fritz has been able to say, this is what I think would be great. And she knows me, and she has never gotten it wrong. So the house is very comfortable. There's a lot of blues and greens and pinks to bring out some color. There's a lot of art, a lot of dog art. And then there's some special touches from my life, from Wyoming, the time at the White House, artwork that Peter and I have picked up along the way, and a lot of books. So working in the White House is a 24/7 job. And when I was there, we went from having pagers that we would use to contact each other on the weekends to having Blackberries. And now all of a sudden you could do email 24/7. And my husband would always want me to get off my phone for a while. And I would actually hide in the bathroom sometimes, answering emails to reporters so that he wouldn't get mad at me on Saturdays and Sundays. And over time, I became the deputy press secretary, and it was a great job. I loved being the deputy. I was deputy to Tony Snow and to Scott McClellan, but Tony Snow was the main person I worked for. And he let me do a lot of things. I always briefed President Bush on every press conference. I was there every Saturday and Sunday. I worked all the holidays and weekends. I went on all the trips. That was me. So getting towards the end of the administration, about 18 months left to go, maybe a little more, the chief of staff said, hey, if there's anybody on the team who doesn't think they can make it to the very end, say so now, because we need people with fresh legs. The president intends to finish his second term with a sprint to the finish. And I thought, I am barely crawling right now. I can't imagine what it's going to be like at the finish. So around that time, Peter was going to run a crazy race, like a 24-hour race with a relay team in Wisconsin. And I said, fine, I'll go. And on the trip there, we talked about this challenge from the chief of staff. And I said, maybe because I'm not going to be the press secretary in the top job, it would be good to leave now. And I can get established. I didn't come from money, so I needed to get a job right away. And I thought that was what I was going to do. Peter and I spend the weekend, and at the end of the weekend, that's our plan. I'm going to resign from the White House. Now, I didn't really want to leave the White House, but I felt like if I was being practical, this was the right time. So I go into the White House on the Monday morning, and I had a communications meeting, and I saw Ed Gillespie, the counselor to the president in charge of communications, and I said, hey, Ed, can I see you after the meeting? He says, oh, yes, I need to talk to you too. Perfect. We have the meeting. He dismisses everyone and says, Dana, can you stay? Sure. Everybody leaves, and we sit down, and I'm so nervous. I'm just about to blurt out that I'm going to resign from the White House. And he said, do you mind if I go first? And I said, okay, sure. And I sat back, and he said, the president would like to announce you as the new press secretary on Friday. And I said, great. And inside, immediately, I knew my life had changed dramatically. First of all, Tony Snow, who was the press secretary, was suffering from cancer and needed to take care of his health in order to spend some time with his family and get better. And the job was just entirely too much for somebody who was needing to focus on his health. Secondly, I knew that it was an opportunity that the first Republican woman would ever have had. So I was about to make some history. And I also knew that if I didn't totally screw it up, it would open doors to me for a career that I could have never imagined when I was a kid growing up in Wyoming. This is something that I call the morning room, though you can be in here anytime. When we bought the house, these 4 white chairs were here, and I love them, and we've kept them. But we added different pillows to, again, bring out that blue and white feel. We showcase a few things. Of course, this is our dog Percy as Winston Churchill, because who wouldn't want a little plate like this? We also have here, just as a chance to highlight a few accomplishments, but these are the 4 books I've written. And so we just keep them here as a good reminder that we're blessed and we have had great opportunity that we took advantage of. Do you want to see my most important valued objects? Here they are. President George W. Bush was not a painter during the White House years. He became a painter afterwards. And it's a wonderful story. And it turns out he's very, very good, like a savant. He's excellent. This is a painting he did of Percy, my puppy, when he was about 3 months old. And he signs it 43. And I'll never forget, he sent me a message and he said, are you sure this dog's eyes are blue? I said, yes, sir. They are blue. They turn over time. And then I just have this here, painted by George W. Bush for Dana P. in November of 2021. And honestly, as I told Peter, you have to be Dolly Madison. If anything's happening in this house, if there's a fire, these are the things you get. I also had a chance to see him in March of 2021 when he did a portrait of immigrants book. And I went to interview him, and he surprised me with this bouquet and a technique that he's really worked on and developed. So this and that one, and then a painting that I have in New York of Jasper, my prized possessions. And let me bring you into the dining room. And this is a great place to gather. And I love, again, bringing the blues in. We have an indoor-outdoor rug, and part of the reason is we live on the beach. So people are coming in and out, and people are super respectful, but we do have a stone floor, and then, because of sand and the rain, sometimes mud, it's just easy to clean if you have the indoor-outdoor type of materials, which we have here. So this is the table. Let me first show you this. I mentioned that the bush paintings are my prized possessions. I'm going to add this shell mirror. My friend Lauren Fritz, the decorator's daughter, she got all of these shells from the Bahamas and then made this for me as a gift. I absolutely adore it. I adore it. And then this was a special memory of Bill Hemmer and myself on set when Percy came into our lives. So Jasper, the America's dog, was very famous at Fox, and he died only at 9 years old. So getting Percy was quite a joy, and I just love how Bill Hemmer held him up like Simba. I also love these from Mark and Graham. You can get these coasters that are paper, but you can monogram them in any way. So they just say Bayhead, and that makes for a great way to protect your table. This is a vintage cabinet that Barbara Fritz found, and we just keep the odds and ends in here for cocktail napkins in case you need one of those. The table I love. These are from La Platera, and that's out of Madrid. That's one of our favorite places to travel, and it goes well with hydrangeas, which we have a lot of hydrangeas at the Jersey Shore. Blue and white are special colors. I know the ones that grow around in my yard are hot pink. So when those come up, they're a fun thing to add to the table. We have the bamboo look for the silverware. And then this is a special light feature that we found that would just add a little bit of white still, but something that is more of a kind of dramatic and eye-catching piece for the house. And I grew up in Wyoming, and most of our gatherings are very casual, and I continue to have that here. I like to have a pretty table, but I don't do assigned seats. There's a lot of laughter. Oftentimes we'll do the buffet line up here so that people can take their plates and serve themselves here and get up and enjoy that. There's a lot of conversation that happens around this table. Sometimes we will drop in a topic. In fact, I've had a dinner party where I asked everyone to bring an unpopular opinion about something, and then we will discuss all of those things. But typically in our crew, there's not much silence at any table, so it doesn't have to be too formal. We like to just gather around, and then sometimes we'll head over here into this room, which is a little bit more of a formal seating room, but nothing is too formal here. This is where I showcase a few things that I care about. Peter and I met on an airplane. We haven't really talked about that too much. It was in 1997, and he lived in England. I lived here. Who would have thought it was ever going to work? Thankfully it did. And this is a picture from our first date in New Orleans in 1997. And back then, because we didn't have phones and the cloud, we don't have that many pictures of ourselves, but that one is special. This room is so great for a few reasons. I typically tend to read here in the late afternoon before dinner. It's also a great place to take a nap if you are ever going to do that. We do a lot of puzzles, and I love Liberty puzzles and artifact puzzles. These are ones with wooden pieces, and if you haven't seen these, I highly recommend them. So this would be the cover, okay? And then you have these big wooden pieces that are very colorful, and you'll get a piece like this. And they're really fun to work with. Here's a cat. And we find it's a great way to bond. The only difficult thing is going to bed and putting it away, and also not getting a crook in your neck from these. But typically, we do a lot of puzzles around here, and Liberty puzzles are special. They're also expensive. So what I've done is started a tradition here in Bayhead. When I finish one, I pass it on to somebody else, and then they all rotate around. So that's kind of fun. This is a special piece for me that comes from Seville, and there's a couple of others that I'll show you. I just fell in love with this artist. He takes classical paintings and then makes a cartoon out of them. And I love that. The fireplace here is a gas fireplace, which is really good. And here you have Peter's prized possession, all of this sea glass that he's found on the beach. I've contributed like 5 pieces, but he finds a lot more in the mornings when he takes Percy to his walks. I've mentioned Lauren Fritz. She gave a gift to me of organizing my bookshelves for me here. So there's just a lot of love and heart here for me that might not be something that a guest would immediately recognize unless they knew me fairly well. So for example, let me just give you an example. You have this picture here with the president. This was in January of 2009, just as he was about to leave office. And Peter had mentioned to me, I won't see him again as president. And I mentioned that to 43, and he said, let's bring him in. So this was the last picture of all of them together. Do a little, I don't really talk about it. I do a little ballroom dancing, and I got 3rd place at a recent competition. So I have that there. We won't talk about that too much more. Some vintage pins that Lauren Fritz found for me, the Bush books here, a little card from the president for Peter. My friend Ingrid gave us this globe. I don't know how it works, but it constantly is moving. And there is some reason in terms of gravity that all works with the movement of the earth, and I kind of enjoy that. This is a special book. This is, let me pull this. Well, these are special. This is a book called The Children's Everything Within. Look at this. And Peter talked about this book that when he was a kid in England, this book was kind of like the encyclopedia that everyone had. And it would tell you all sorts of things about sports, the Bible, literature, myths and legends. And we found a copy for him on eBay. It's pretty precious. This is a book about books. Of course, you know I like that. The reason I wanted to grab this, when I was a little kid, I had an illustrated Bible. And I've talked about it several times on The 5. My parents divorced, and I don't know where that book ended up. I don't think I have it in my possession anymore. It could be somewhere, but I basically have lost track of it. And I mentioned this on The 5. And do you know that somebody who watches, who was a bus driver in Staten Island, sent this to me and said, I think this is the book that you were talking about. And it was. And I think it's so special that I have it now, and I had that connection from when I was a kid to coming on The 5 and somebody who was willing to give me their children's Bible. So I have these things here as a special little gift. This is a piece of art that came with the house when we bought it. And this wood paneling is original to the house before Hurricane Sandy, but they were able to treat it and save this wall. So we've left it like this, and I quite like it. It kind of reminds me of Colorado and Wyoming, where I have roots, and a little bit beachy as well. Well, as promised, Percy is making an appearance. Hi, Percy. How you doing? Okay, we can show them a trick maybe. One thing that Barbara Fritz found was this vintage rattan light. And we have gone through many versions, but it has lots of different settings. So it depends on what the day is like and how bright it is outside, how much reading light I need. There's also, this is a cute little thing. I don't have a lot of antiques, but this was given to Peter for Christmas from a good friend of ours who owns the bookshop in town. So here we go. Ready one more time? These are old-fashioned toys. You know, Laura Bush was once asked this question in an interview that I helped staff for her. And she said that what she thought made the White House a home for herself and the president and their daughters was that they had pets. And I don't know if you remember Barney and Miss Beasley, and they had a cat. I think the cat's name was India. And pets can make a house a home. And for us, our dogs have been very important in our life. When Peter and I first met and we lived in England, we had a dog named Henry, and he came to America. He lived in California, rode all the way across the country. He was famous in Washington, D.C., and he even got to live in New York for a few months before he passed. And then we got Jasper, and after he passed away, we got Percy. And in our entire marriage, which is about 26 or 27 years now, we've only been without a dog for about 18 weeks total. So for us, the dog really helps make a house a home. I believe that this is my husband's 44th address in his life. And you wonder, how is that possible? Well, his dad was in the Royal Air Force and they moved around a lot. And then he was an international businessman, so he lived in a few different places. And we also moved a lot because of opportunity and my jobs that had changed. And it was during COVID that Peter said, this is where I want to be. And so that's how we ended up in Bay Head, New Jersey. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would become a Jersey girl. That was the farthest thing from my mind. I was born in Wyoming. Both of my parents grew up in Wyoming. My mom with a small business type family in Rawlins, and my dad on a ranch that my great-grandparents founded in the late 1800s. And I was 2 years old when we moved to Denver, and I can ride a horse very well. I love the mountains. I love the seasons. I love country western music, all of the things Western in my life. But when I was 22 years old, I'd finished graduate school. I came back to Colorado, not sure what I was going to do, trying to find a job in local media. My goal at the time was to be a main anchor on a great station, sort of in the southwest part of the United States. I speak fluent Spanish. I wanted to utilize it. And I got a job offer in Washington, D.C., answering phones for a congressman. And I thought, if I do that, I'll never get a chance to work in television. Well, that ended up not being true. But the whole reason that I am here today, welcoming you into my home in Bay Head, New Jersey, is because I took this circuitous route to get to doing national television. And that was through Washington, D.C., working on Capitol Hill, working then after 9/11 back at the Justice Department and then at the White House. And ultimately then after that is how I got to New York to work with Fox News. Outdoor space that we did not have a couple of years ago. Let me show you. So right here where these columns are, this is where the porch ended. There was a little deck upstairs, but this was it. We had a dining table out here, but there was no shade. We tried umbrellas, but they would blow over. It just wasn't enough. So we decided to extend that deck and provide shade for this area. So we have another place for everybody to gather when it's warm enough to be outside. So we spend a lot of time out here. This is a sideboard table that we use for the buffet. And also, you know, a dog toy here and there for Percy. These chairs are nice and thick, cozy, and I like, again, the blue accents. This used to have a waterfront view, but after Hurricane Sandy, they built up the dune in order to protect the houses. So this is what we look at. The ocean's just over there. This is something that we had at a house in South Carolina. We had a home in Palmetto Bluff for a while, and there was a porch swing. And so I would sit on that. In the summertime, I sat with my dog, Jasper, and I wrote, and the good news is, on that porch swing. Over here, we have an awning that can come out to provide more shade, and a little fireplace area here. Just yet another place to sit and a deck up there. This is something that Barbara Fritz found. It was a vintage bar, and she had it at another house. And I said, wait, I love that. So now it's over here. We have these little cups, Bay Head or nowhere. And right now it's just water, but we could put lots of other things in there if you wanted. This house was built many, many years ago, and it's gone through 2 hurricanes. Hurricane Sandy that took place in 2012 really wiped out this floor, so everything had to be redone. We bought it, and the kitchen, after about 12 years, needed another redo, so we did that. And Barbara Fritz, who is the decorator, helped design it. It's very clean and very white. It doesn't always look this perfect. I believe all the brass knobs are from Restoration Hardware. She did a quartz countertop, which is something that is great. One of the things I actually like about this is that I do like things to be clean and neat, and I was concerned about having white cabinets. The nice thing is about the finish of these is that they wipe off very nicely. So even if I see something, I can wipe it quickly and it's gone. That is something that we didn't have in the other house, but I love. The light fixtures here are some of my favorite things. I think they're dramatic and big and fun. Of course, the breakfast bar, which also becomes the laptop bar and the dinner bar, anything you want to do here at this bar. This is me being very brave, showing you what's inside my fridge. So here we go. Pretty typical. We don't have children, so we don't have a lot of like kid things, but you know, yogurts and all the different kinds of milks, egg whites, you got to have those. Some berries for your antioxidants. And the most important thing, farmer's dog for Percy. Yeah, he's fancy like that. This is one of the big features of the house, and it's repeated outside, and it's a spiral staircase that gives it, I would say, kind of a nautical feel. That's how I feel about it. And when I first walked in the house when we were going to buy it, it's just a showstopper, and this is something that I really wanted. We also, because we entertain a lot, we wanted some place where we could have a little bit of a bar area. So there's lots of places to sit in the house, and I love a swivel chair. I love these, and we added this bar. So this is a chance for us to showcase a couple of things that we love. In fact, this here, this Weber Ranch vodka, is a friend of ours. He helped take Patron Public, the tequila. Now they have an agave vodka, so we try to feature that. And a lot of this stemware is things that Barbara found. My drink of choice is actually pretty simple. Vodka soda with a lime. We do have a lot of country music fans that come to the house, and so of course they like the whiskey, and I've got a Redneck Riviera back here. If you guys know John Rich, Big and Rich, that's his whiskey back there. If you know Lawrence Jones, I have tequila here for when he comes to visit. Lawrence Jones, he's a Fox and Friends co-host, and also he likes this tequila. And then somebody made this for Peter for his birthday, something special. I'm not a big tequila fan, but I have friends that are, so we make sure that they have something special here. This is interesting. A good friend of mine, she went on the pilgrimage in Spain, and she printed this for me because she said she heard me say this, and she loved it. It says, "Traveling is a reminder of how insignificant you are, but God thinks you're significant." And she loved that, and so she made that for me, which is really nice. This is kind of special to me. I have an assistant. I had an assistant named Caroline. She's now had a baby. And we'll show you this bedroom, but this is a scene of a sunrise in July. And she asked an artist to paint it. And so this is a watercolor, but this is the sunrise that we see in the summertime. We have lots of great books, lots of decorating books. This one's a lovely book about all the things that you can see along the sea. Here's my new one. Here's Peter and myself visiting the Bush Center in Dallas. So we try to bring all of the different parts of our life together. As I mentioned, Tony Snow, the press secretary, often had me fill in for him. And there was a 2-week period when I needed to do so. And I had always been very happy being behind the scenes. But there was nobody else to brief the press. I was it. So I am 5'1" on my best day, and he was 6'5". And they had made the podium for him. And when I went to do the briefing, I was nervous about what I was going to say. Was I going to make the president proud? Was I going to screw up? Was I going to start a war? All of those things. I got through it. It was great. The first week was fine. I had been asked, did I want them to make me a new podium? I said, no, that's such a waste of taxpayer dollars. I'll just stand on an apple box at Tony Snow's podium and it'll be fine. So the week goes by, it goes great. But that Friday night, my young assistant press secretary says, "Ma'am, I think they should make you a new podium for next week." And I said, "Oh, there's no need, it's fine. Tony's podium works well." And they said, "Actually, NBC News showed us the camera shot from the back of the room. And when you're at Tony Snow's podium, the seal above your head does not say the White House, it says the White Ho for a week. And I'll never forget that cameraman from NBC News, Rodney. And he was looking out for me, and he said, we have to fix this. Now, this is before Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook and all the rest. Thank goodness. And let me show you into what I guess is the family room. There's lots of different places to sit, but this is a place where if we are going to watch a movie, we would do that. I like the blue couch. Again, we have kind of a nautical feel, but then these pops of pink that I really, really love. Barbara knew that I love backgammon. My dad would play with my sister and me for hours, and whoever beat that person played the next one. So this is a set that she got for us, and I like to have it out here and not away so that we are more likely to sit and talk and play a game rather than just watching TV or being on our screens. This is pretty fun. Little no one likes a shady beach. I like to have a little bit of fun where we can. This is actually pretty special to me. I had a dog named Jasper. There's been 3 dogs: Henry, Jasper, Percy. Jasper was the middle dog. He was probably the most famous. He was on Fox a lot. He loved to be on TV, would look straight into the camera. And this painting was commissioned by a friend of mine, a really well-known country music artist and songwriter named Amy Mayo. She wrote the song Amazed, in case you want to look that up. And her uncle painted this. And what I love about this is he has a gallery in Nashville. And he didn't know who Jasper was. He just painted this King Jasper. And he was hanging it in his gallery. And people came in and they said, "Oh, you know America's dog, Jasper?" And he said, "Who is this dog?" Well, that's who he is. And Kelly Harwood is now a good friend of mine as well. So that's a special piece. I keep this book out. We read a lot. I love books. Joseph Mitchell has this book, Up in the Old Hotel. Great stories about New York. And I am not a native New Yorker. It's an adopted city, but I love it. And Charlie Hurt of Fox News gave this to me, and I love it very much. I also was gifted this painting here of Jasper. This was given to me by a local news anchor in Syracuse. And he appreciated a favor that I did for him, so he had that commission for me. We really do need warmth in this room in the winter, so the fireplace is really important for us to get some heat moving in here. For some reason, it's not that warm in here. This is special. So the 5, one time we went to Nashville with John Rich, and we wrote a song called Shut Up About Politics. And it went to #1 in the world. And it took the country music world by storm. You can see it on Spotify. This is it says, "Dana, we did it. #1. Love ya, John Rich." I do not know how to play the guitar, but thankfully my husband does. And anybody else who comes by, if they want to give it a shot, we let them do that. Peter has quite a vinyl collection. Here we go. My sister does a lot of paint by number. Barbara has me hide these, but I like them. This was Peter on his Harley that has a sidecar, and he dressed up as Batman. Jasper was Robin. It was for a contest at a parade in South Carolina, and we won first place. So I was pretty proud of that. Here's just, again, like these bookshelves that are so important to us. This was Jasper. This is my mom here. I have pictures of President Bush here. A lot of my Fox friends have written books, and so I include them where I can. Of course, I remember getting this. This was a special gift from Jeannie Mamo, who was a good friend of mine, and gave this to me. She and I worked at the White House together. And you can see more. Savannah Guthrie and I worked together at the White House. Back in the day, of course, she's on the Today Show now. So just a chance for me to have a lot of books. I try to move books along so that I don't have too many, but it's hard because I keep buying them wherever I can. This is one of my favorite photographs of a really fun time. I've mentioned Lauren Fritz. She is my good friend from Fox News, and her mother is the interior designer of this house. This is one of the cowboys. I don't actually know what he calls himself, in Spain, and he is an incredible incredible horseman, and we got to have a private tour with him, and that was just a great moment. Fox News colleagues, I'll never forget this. This was after COVID. This is when Brett Baer, Martha McCallum, Bill Hemmer, and the president of Fox News, Jay Wallace, we were all together celebrating post-COVID getting through that election, and there we had that. We inherited this pool table. I'm not the best player, but I wanted to keep this because it is a focal point for when we gather people around and just to, shoot the balls around a little bit. I really don't know how to play. I'm not great at it, but I like to watch and comment. This here is a painting that was commissioned in the Jersey Shore. She used to do a lot of these, but she had never, ever painted a dog in a picture before. So this was her first one, and that was Jasper. He loved fetching sticks in the ocean. This is a little bit special. This is what our house looks like from the outside. And that's an old antique vintage picture that somebody found at an antique store around town, and they painted it on this shell. So I keep that as a little keepsake, indeed. I mentioned that my husband has had 44 homes. This is a place called Ely in Scotland. That is one of the places where he lived. There is an Air Force base, a Royal Air Force base, and that is nearby that water. So we have that as a special little homage to that. And then years ago, Greg Gutfeld sold to Peter his Metropolitan, Nash Metropolitan. It's in the garage now, but this was a painting that was commissioned of that little car that's really fun. Interestingly enough, these were the first cars ever marketed to women. They're small, they're cute, and they're fun. There's no seatbelts though, so I don't like to go in too often. In January of 2009, I left the day that President Bush went home to Texas, and I went on a trip. My husband and I spent a month in Africa. In South Africa, in particular, we did 2 weeks of volunteer work and 2 weeks of safari and learning more about the country. And I loved it. But when I came back, I needed to get to work. And really, one of the only things I truly wanted to do was to have some sort of a presence on cable television. And my hope was it would be Fox, but I wasn't sure if that would work out. But I had a champion and a secret weapon, and that was Sean Hannity. And he was the one who said, I think she's got something special. Let me try. Now, please don't go back and look for any of those early tapes. They have to be terrible. But he invited me every week to come up and to be on his show with Stuart Varney, who now is one of our main anchors at Fox Business and a wonderful guy. Also British, like my husband, and I got along very well with him. I had a variety of jobs. I was working in PR. I was appointed to the Broadcasting Board of Governors under President Obama as one of the Republican nominees to that position. I had a Minute Mentoring organization that I had started. I was giving a lot of speeches. I was on doing charity work. And when you leave a White House, you truly believe that the last call you got is the last call you will ever get. That obviously turned out not to be true. But in all of those things that I did, the only thing that I loved the most, that I would drop everything for, was if they asked me to be a guest on any of the Fox programs. So I would do Fox and Friends. I would do daytime programming. I'd go up for Hannity, or maybe even get the chance to be on that time, the O'Reilly Factor. Brett Baer and I knew each other from the White House days when he covered President Bush. And what really changed things was in July of 2011, I was just getting home from Africa, and I was at Dulles Airport at baggage claim waiting for my suitcase, and I get a call. And it's from Fox. And would you be willing to come up for about 5 weeks this summer, just for a temporary program? It's going to be 5 people sitting around a table for 1 hour at 5 o'clock. And it's just for 5 weeks. And I thought, wow, ugh, in the summer, yuck. There's no place worse than the middle of Manhattan in the summertime. And I called Peter, and he said, congratulations. This is what you've always wanted. And 14 years later, we are still doing that show. And Greg Gutfeld and I are the two still original people that started it together. He and I didn't know each other. We are great friends, but we didn't know each other really. And the only reason we sit next to each other on the 5 is because we are the 2 shortest people at Fox, and the lighting worked well for us to be there together. From there, I also did other programs as a guest. But then in October of 2017, I started the Daily Briefing with Dana Perino. And then in 2020, that all changed as well. And I had an opportunity to be with Bill Hemmer doing America's Newsroom, which is one of the bedrock news programs of Fox. So anchoring that with him from 9 to 11 a.m. and then still doing the 5 from 5 to 6. And then there was one other assignment that I loved, and that was the election coverage team. I love this team. I think that we are the best at it. We have so much fun, and we're also the most knowledgeable. We have great sources, and it has been a wild ride, as everybody can imagine. And then in addition to that, Fox has given me the opportunity to do something I always wanted to do. There's a book in my basement, this little cloth-covered book from first grade. And I remember the assignment was you had to write, what did you want to be when you grew up? And I wrote an author. Fox has been able to help me make that dream come true. I have 4 books under my belt, and then I have a brand new one. And I'm really proud of it. I think it's a little gem. It's called I Wish Someone Had Told Me the Best Advice for Building a Great Career and a Meaningful Life. And how about Percy and I take you upstairs to show you a couple of more rooms? So this is a hallway leading into one of my favorite guest rooms. This painting comes from the same artist in Sevilla, and I love the colors. And then Lauren Fritz, she's quite the artist. She painted this as well, and it really goes with this room here. And welcome to this little guest bedroom. It's my sister's favorite place to stay, my mom's too. I have a little bit of a green theme going in here. So this is a nice chair, a little bamboo seat for your feet. This is a piece of art that I've had for years. When I lived on Capitol Hill and I had finally a little extra money, I bought this print from one of the artisans there at Eastern Market, and I've kept it. It reminds me of all those fun times I had in Washington, D.C. My memories there from Capitol Hill are very fond, and it also gave me a great tie-in to the greens of this room. And the special thing about this guest bedroom is that when you come out, you have the ocean view, and the staircase, we kept the spiral theme, and the artisans who did that were quite good at their jobs, of course. And then more places to sit, the blues and the pinks, and one of the favorite features, the American flag. And Percy likes to sit up here and take in the air, and we love a sunrise, and sometimes we move the furniture and have a little yoga party out here, which is quite fun to do. And now we will go up to my special little spot. Again, another spiral staircase. Come on up. And this is what we call the perch, and it's kind of my room. People are allowed up here, but really it is my space. Some fun pictures of me and Jasper, Peter and I with Percy, and a little beach theme. I decided to get an old-fashioned alarm clock, so I have that here and keeps me on task. This is where I do a lot of my writing. This is a vintage desk that Barbara Fritz found, and she got me this lovely mat that is a beach scene. So I keep that here because sometimes I'm trapped up here writing. And a nice little Lily Pulitzer notebook. It's quite nautical. The wallpaper is quadrille. I love it. It feels like spring and health all year round. It's one of my favorite spots. Again, also vintage bookshelf with some neat things like, for example, a little White House themed pen. This pen was made from wood of the flooring that they had to replace, and so they made these for us. A good friend of mine gave me this candle, and I love it. I don't burn it because I'm afraid of not having this candle, but I probably should. But it's called The First Draft, which I think is brilliant. This is actually my favorite cartoon. Oh my gosh. So I was the White House press secretary, and sometimes you can get a little frustrated with reporters. This says, guy at the podium to a crowd, hey you. No, not you. The guy next to you. Nope, farther. No, not him. You. Yeah, you? Yeah. F you. My favorite. Bayhead has a lake, and so we were there. I went to Rwanda not too long ago and visited a friend's charity, and we also got to go and visit gorillas. These were some really wonderful young people doing some traditional dances, welcoming us to that beautiful spot. Africa is important to me. This area is where I do all my writing, and I sit and I look out at the ocean, and I have this quiet space. It's usually very silent up here, which I need silence in order to work. And then there's some workout equipment here to make sure I stay on task. Pilates, I love. The Wanda chair is a great investment. It will last you forever. And then I have a little spot to go and sit outside here. Do some yoga sometimes by myself. But it's really lovely. And if you look up this way, you can see all the way to Point Pleasant Beach. One of the best things about working at a White House, and the best way not to get a big head about it, is to share it with other people. And we had just been to Africa on a presidential trip, and I was very moved. And to this day, my husband and I volunteer and are supportive of a couple of different key charities that we think do a great job in Africa. But it all started because of my access to it through President Bush. On my way home from that trip, I read a book by a reporter, Helene Cooper. She writes for the New York Times to this day. And she had grown up in Liberia. That's one of the countries that we visited when we were there. And America has a very special relationship and a responsibility for Liberia. Many freed Black slaves had returned to Liberia in order to help get that country going. It was the first democracy in Africa. It had gone through a lot of civil war. And Helene was a young girl when that civil war broke out. And she writes this beautiful book, and I read it. I was very moved. At the end of the book, it turns out that her sister was going to be coming to the United States for a visit, a sister that she had left behind in Africa, somebody who had been adopted into the family. I was very moved by this story, and I sent Helene a note, and she writes back saying, guess what? My sister's coming next week. And so later that day, I saw President Bush, and I said, Mr. President, I just talked to Helene, and this book is so good, I think you'd really like it. And by the way, her sister is going to be in Washington next week. Isn't that amazing? And he said, should we invite her to the Oval Office? I said, I think we should. And that next week she got to come, and it was such a moving moment. I can see it all in my mind right now. And there's several little key moments like that are not necessarily profound, and it wasn't like meeting any world leader, but to me, meeting that woman who was able to come see her sister, to know that the President of the United States and the taxpayers of the country were willing to try to help them. It was very moving, and we did that a lot. I have a friend I worked with at the White House who had a great description, because I think a lot of people see it as a big mysterious place. And in a way it is. It should have some intrigue. And you can see shows like The West Wing or Veep, and truly a lot of them do a pretty good job of things. But I think people would be surprised at how many times things happen by chance. The White House is not like the Wizard of Oz and everything is behind the curtain. Some things just happen and there's no conspiracy to it. And I have a very good friend who used to work for Condoleezza Rice, and he told me, the longer I work in government, the more convinced I am that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Like, it's very hard to get coordination anyway, let alone big conspiracies. One of the things I say to young women is, if you are an educated young woman in America, most of the people in the world would rather trade places with you. And you have to ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen if I try? And one of the things I've learned is just how quickly time flies. And I want to buy everyone's extra minutes so that I can have more time in the day. But it's the most bipartisan thing in the world. We all get the same amount of time in a day. And so I'm inspired by wanting to do my very best so that I can achieve all of the aspirations. I was White House press secretary at a very young age, and that time it went by very quickly. And now I have this opportunity to provide my thoughts and entertain millions of people every single day, and then to also reach others, especially younger people, when it comes to the self-help and advice books and mentoring books that I've been doing. And also just to have some fun and some joy in life. That's really what I think this house has given to me, and it's a real blessing.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Wesley Moon and welcome to my house in Fire Island Pines.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. To shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy episodes, be sure to check out the product links below for amazing furniture, accessories, and more.
Hi, I'm Wesley Moon. I'm an interior designer based in New York with projects all around the country. You're currently at my home in Fire Island Pines. I found the house because my next door neighbors are actually my longtime friends, and I'd been searching for a house in Fire Island for quite a while. And they said, why don't you look at the house next door? And I'd never really thought about it, just because it seemed like it was just a much bigger and fancier house than I ever wanted. But once they brought me over here, I fell in love. The thing is, the owners I bought it from were the original owners that built the house, and they loved it. And they didn't want to sell, but they had to because one had a health issue and they were afraid of being out here on the island where you can't get medical attention so quickly. So they had actually turned down 2 previous buyers because they didn't think they would take good care of the house. And so my friends actually acted as my referrals, called them up, said, hey, Wesley Moon's here, he's interested in your house. And they knew me from an article that Arc Digest had done about the restoration of a Norman Jaffe house in the Hamptons. And so they thought, this guy will take care of our house. And I had dinner with them in the city, and we hit it off, and they let me buy it. So as you come in, you go up the boardwalk, which of course boardwalks are indicative of Fire Island Pines. We're surrounded by rhododendron, we have climbing hydrangea, and normally there's a lot more flowers going on. We're a little late in the season. The rhododendron have the most beautiful hot pink flowers, and then we have the hydrangea over here, which are normally white. Some of them, sometimes they fill in as pink. The garden is obviously a mature garden and something that the original owners started 40 years ago. But I came and filled in a few more trees along the front fence for a little more privacy, and then did the rocks and the rock paths instead of having just mulch. I'm dreaming of the day when I find the right sculpture. I want the right big sculpture to sit here among the ferns, but haven't found it yet. If there's any artists out there that want to send me some proposals. So then as you walk up to the house, you get to the main entry. I also love the way that the house sort of is a little hidden when you first walk in the gate, and as you come up around the curve, it sort of reveals itself a bit more. So the front facade of the house is a bit more serious. It's a bit more serene. It's got that business in the front, party in the back, so I call it the mullet house. But I like that the front of it can be a bit more imposing, and it really gives a sense of privacy. But then once you're inside and once you're in the back, then you can loosen up and like really let your hair down and have a good time. So here we are just in the entry when you first walk in the house. The house is very open in the public space. So as you come in, there's just, little entry table, staircase up, and then you arrive in the double height living room. This is my favorite part of the house because it's not a very big house in terms of footprint, but it's got a lot of volume. So this is where you have like these really high ceilings, about 22 feet high, and this giant skylight up here. So we have light in here all day long. And I also love the round window that's up here above the fireplace. This is the wood wall that was here when I bought the house, and it's something that I just really love and that I would have done myself. I think it's just an amazing sense of scale. I love the horizontal lines and how that like plays against the verticality of it. So this is a place where we actually really only sit in the shoulder seasons, run the fireplace when it's a little chilly outside. Otherwise, we basically live outside. But you know, everything in this house, I didn't want anything to be precious. So even this is a beautiful like Pierre Frey indoor-outdoor fabric. The rug also indoor-outdoor. So I wanted it to look sophisticated and nice and pretty, but at the end of the day, still to be a beach home that can be lived in and used. So the coffee table in the living room is actually original to the house, and it was something that I loved and I kept. It's vintage Lauren Marsh, so it's actually a really nice piece of furniture. But this also serves as a stage. You can easily take everything off. Anytime that we do any like costume parties, we clear this off, and this is where we take all of our pictures. People have been known to get up here and dance a little bit. Very sturdy table. And then it's just full of things that I love. This is a cactus that a dear friend of mine brought first time he came to visit out here. So the orchid is a really funny story because I'm not usually an orchid person. I mean, of course they're beautiful, but it wouldn't always be my flower of choice. But when I came to see the house the first time, they had all the light switches labeled. There's over 91 light switches in this house. I don't know why, so I ended up putting it on a Lutron like system I controlled my phone. But originally, each light switch had a little label on it. And one of the labels said orchid light. And I was like, and I realized there was one switch that controlled just one light up there that was made to shine down on the orchid. So because of that, I've always held up the tradition of the house of having an orchid in this spot with the orchid light on it. Here I have what I call my adult yearbook. So I made this book for the first 2 years that I owned the house for me and my friends. And it's basically just pictures of all the fun that we've had here in the house. And then this book was left to me by the previous owners. And this one shows the pictures of the house when it was being built. So they left the construction photos. There's one I really like. Look at this. This is what the house looked like while it's being built. These were the previous owners, Russell and Eddie. Great guys. And like, I love this progression of the house being built. So yeah, they left me this whole notebook of pictures, which I love. And then of course I have Interior Designers at Home by Stephen Crafty, which by the way shows the apartment in the city where you can tell, if you didn't see the previous Homeworthy, is a very different space. This piece of art I think is amazing. So this is by a Greek artist. He's a painter, but this is actually a photograph. His name is Michalis Goumas. And I love it because it makes me think of like an Italian Renaissance ceiling, but it's really just a picture of naked guys in a pool, which that's Fire Island, it's fun. And then over here is Falco. So this was an owl that got famous, it was in Central Park. And so my dear friend, next door neighbor, Ron Treskin, who is a graphics artist and he does screen printing now. So he made prints of Falco. So this is actually spring, it's got a green background, but he did all 4 seasons with different color backgrounds. And so I love this piece right here. So these fish sculptures, interestingly enough, I bought this one many years ago, back when I had that same first apartment out here. It's by a sculptor named Glenn Wildgus, and he's actually a local artist, lived in Fire Island for a very long time. And so when I got this place and I had the 2 niches, I actually commissioned him to make a companion fish on the other side just for this other niche. And so that's where that one came from. So if you've never been to Fire Island, a lot of people have some preconceived notions about it. Really, Fire Island is a 32-mile long island that's only about 3/4 of a mile wide. There's 13 different communities on the island, and they're all very, very different. So a lot of people think about Fire Island as being an LGBT island. And so there are 2 communities, the Pines, which is where I live, and Cherry Grove, which are both predominantly gay. And people oftentimes just think of particularly the Pines as like partying and people just here to like share houses and having fun. But the great thing that I love is there's actually a wonderful community of homeowners. Many people have owned their homes, like my neighbors, that have been here for 40, 50 years. And so there's this wonderful community of people that have dinner parties, and they're just much more low-key, and it can actually be a place of refuge and quiet if that's what you choose. But if you want to go out and party, that's here too. It's kind of a choose your own adventure sort of place. So this is the dining area. This gets a lot of use. This is really a gathering place for me and all my friends, and you can fit 14 to 16 people at this table if you really want to. So the table also vintage Lauren Marsh that came with the house that I wanted to keep, and it was in pristine condition when I got it, but now it's a little scratched up, but that's what I love about it. It's like shows that we actually use it. We have dinner parties here, we enjoy it, and so I don't mind. It's like a leather jacket. Like over time, it's gonna just continue to patina, and I think eventually it'll just look like it's supposed to be that way. These are vintage Dongia chairs that I recovered in this fun little fabric, so they just seem to go perfectly here. When I first got the house, these were just two recessed light fixtures that were over the dining table, and I wanted a chandelier, so I worked with Bright Brown to create this great rope. It's like a woven, like crocheted sort of rope and hand-blown globes. So it's kind of fun, very beachy, but still I think very sophisticated to use as the chandelier. That's just a light sculpture that I found that's from the 80s, and so I kind of love that that's like the same age as the house, and it's like a totally different vibe, but I like that. So this area is really just, I call it the family room, the den. We just really hang out here if we're ever watching TV, which is very rare out here, but sometimes you just want a chill night. But that is my Let's Have a Kiki sign, which I bought originally for the co-op that I had here before, the studio. And that was back in 2013 when Let's Have a Kiki was the song of the summer. But it's still appropriate today. So whenever the sun goes down, it starts getting dark in here, click, Kiki sign comes on, and it's time to have a drink and have some fun. So I love this lamp. So it's by my friend Benjamin Wiener of Coco Bolo Gallery, and I sort of commissioned it, and when I saw it, I thought it looked like something that had been like drug up from the sea, but then someone came in and said it looks like COVID, and I'm like, okay. But so it's my COVID lamp, and I own it, and I love it. And this is a vintage chair that I found on First Dibs, which I just thought was really funky, but it's actually so much more comfortable than you actually think it would be. I could hang out here for a good solid 10 minutes. This table is from Demuro Das. So they normally sell this table, but I custom added this shelf to the bottom, which I just wanted extra place for books. The house is not like, it's really brilliantly designed when it comes to storage, but there is still limited storage in the house. This wall is a really cool example though of the time gone by, right? Because this was originally, these doors open up and pocket back for a TV, but like it's so deep because it was for one of the old-fashioned deep TVs. And then this is all like the electronics equipment, but I kept the old cassette player, but they also have, you know, I have it's a little messy in there, but there's the record player, cassette player, and like CD player, all that fun stuff. But this thing, when I got it, was full of like big chunky electronics. And they had like the subwoofer door and all of that stuff. So I use mostly that for storage, but in there I have my Sonos that just plays throughout the house. So right here in the middle of everything is the kitchen. So this is like a chef's dream, I guess. I'm not a chef, but a lot of my friends are really good cooks. One in particular is an amazing cook, shout out to Rob, who really uses this space and turns out amazing dinners. One fun thing that I did was I added this sliding window in here so that you can easily open up and get to the grill back there, which we should have took the cover off. But so it's easy to pass through to the grill because before you had to go all the way around. Induction cooktop, and then the key to any sort of beach house or house for entertaining is 2 dishwashers. constantly like switching off between the two. So yeah, the big kitchen over here for him to cook in, and then this area for people to hang out and talk and be out of the way. So it's nice to have the two islands. So in the kitchen, I really loved the finish on the original cabinet. So I kept that. All I did was change the countertops. I did this quartzite material, which is super durable. It's beautiful. It feels kind of beachy to me, but you can literally cut a lime on it and it's totally fine. So I wanted that kind of resilience out here. And then I also put in new faucets and plumbing fixtures. But other than that, there wasn't a lot of updating to do in here because it was so nice to begin with. The house was in pristine condition when I bought it because, as I said, the previous owners took perfect care of it. But there were rooms like the bathrooms and the kitchen that needed some updating. So I wanted to respect the original style of the house, but also have to put a little bit of my own stamp on it. Now, people often think of me for maximalism, particularly people that know or have seen the previous Homeworthy on my place on Park Avenue in the city, that it is definitely a maximalist sort of place and very colorful and very precious, where here I wanted the exact opposite. I wanted it to be relaxed and feel like you're at the beach and just be able to entertain and fill it with my family and friends and not have too much stuff around. For me, I understand for some people there still may be some stuff going on, but for me this is very simple and pared down. So I wanted to respect that postmodern aesthetic, but also bring it up to date and to make it also feel very beachy without feeling sort of Golden Girls, which was a little bit of the previous vibe. So I really felt like this house had a bit of a French Caribbean vibe, and I know here we are in the Northeast, but with the Carolina shutters that were already here, and I really like the feeling of that, and just sort of the openness. It kind of has that sort of, or almost like you're at the Bahamas. And so I wanted to play into that, but then also bring some of the Fire Island bohemian flavor to it as well. So it's really a mix of a lot of different things that I believe makes it very me, but also just makes it comfortable for everyone that comes. So right off the entry when you first walk in here is one of my guest bedrooms. So this guest room is, I love this room because it actually originally was the gym for the previous owners. So they had this wall mirrored, and so we kept that intact and just did wallpaper and drapery and light fixtures and turned it into a bedroom. But again, I think this is a great example of how this house feels so big because of like the double height space in the living room and the openness of the entertaining area. But the guest rooms are intimate and small, and that's fine out here. You should just be in your room to sleep. Otherwise, get out, go have some fun, or get in the sun. So this wallpaper is made out of woven bark and leaves, and I love the tropical kind of vibe that it gives, but still also elevated and sophisticated. Artwork wise, I have original Calder print, and I love it right there because when you walk in the front door, bam, you see it, and it adds a good pop of color to the room. And then also this room has its own sliding glass door that leads out to a little deck. So a guest could choose to even come and go via that doorway. So for lighting in here, again, end tables weren't very big, so I wanted sconces, but we had the mirror. So I found these wonderful hanging lanterns from Palachek. Again, they're like a woven raffia that's dyed, and they make these beautiful little, I like the way they hang from these. So it's casual, but still elegant and chic. This is a bone inlay table and woven leather headboard. And then this light fixture up here, I had custom made by Bone Simple, and it's sort of a plaster kind of paper mache situation that I think is so cool. And then downstairs I also have a guest bathroom that I'll show you. So this guest bath I call the cabana bath. One reason is because it has an exterior door that opens directly outside. So if someone's at the pool, they can easily just pop right in here and you don't have to go through the house all wet. But it also has a shower. Now originally this room had like red granite floors and just plain white walls, and I brought in the idea of doing this Cerussed oak on the walls and this beautiful Ansax tile. And then over here in the sink area, we have a new marble top, and I found this vintage mirror with the ceramic tiles around. And I just thought it was the perfect little thing to have. So I selected these floor tiles from Ann Sachs, and I like them because they kind of have a tatami mat sort of feeling to them, but really it's because they're textured, and so if anyone's coming in wet from the pool, it prevents them from sliding down. So it's practical and beautiful. This is a really great print from a local artist here in Fire Island. His name is Arson, and it's obviously Poseidon, but in some sort of abstract way. I don't know, I really love it. That was beautiful. So here in the entry, there's this console with matching mirror that also are vintage Lord and Marsh. So they came with the house along with the coffee table and the dining table. But I just added drawers across the bottom because I needed a place for my sunglasses and my chewing gum and all the stuff that you need to go out. On here you will find, well, I love these little guys. I got them in Puerto Vallarta. I thought they were so cute. And then we have the Scandals book. So this is where I won't let you read, but we always have to write any scandals that happen, get written in the book with the quill. This is a great vase that I picked up, a Brooklyn artist. Sorry, I'm not going to remember his or her name, but I really, really love the shape of it. But I also have a really strong tie to Lego because it's all I played with as a kid, was I played with my Legos. And so when they came out with Lego flowers, I just had to have them. So that's what we put in this vase, and that way they never die and they always look beautiful. So I became obsessed with Legos when I was tiny, probably 3 years old, and by the time I was 5 or 6 years old, I was building houses out of the Legos. And I used to make my grandmother take me around to like developments where they were building new houses, and I would take pictures of them with my Polaroid camera, and then I would come back and try to build them with my Legos. And it really is one of the reasons that I think I went to architecture school. So I credit Lego with that. So these flowers are just a little homage to everything that, you know, the whole reason I have this house. And I just love them. They're beautiful. So that's it for the ground floor. Let's go upstairs. So here we are on the mezzanine, AKA the catwalk. So this is overlooking the living room, that double height space. And then of course the view is breathtaking when you come up here. I love that you can just see across and see out. Get the big skylight there. So it just gives you a really nice sense of scale of the space. This is a painting that the original owners left for me. So this is actually the house when it was first built in 1988. And this was before they built the porch off the back. Originally you went into the pool from the side. You'll see when we go down there that now there's a big covered porch here, which we live on. Thank God they did that. And then they added on that family room den that I showed you onto the side. So it's kind of a time capsule to see it how it was originally. The great thing about this house, when I bought it, all the mechanical systems, everything were in perfect condition. So everything I did was purely aesthetic. My bathroom, the primary bath upstairs, also was red marble, glass block, huge jacuzzi tub, white Formica cabinets. It was just high 1980s. So while it was cutting edge when it was done, I needed to bring that up to the 21st century. So I did that with onyx floors that are honed, that give it sort of that beachy, sandy feeling, which you wouldn't think about with onyx, but wait till you see. And then I made a little water closet, did a double sink on one side, and cleaned that up. So that was one of my other big projects. The kitchen countertops I changed, but the kitchen cabinets were actually really beautiful as they were. There were these amazing wood walls up the fireplace, on that wall there, and so I wanted to keep that. So I really just, in the main part of the house, changed the paint color and updated the furniture. Over the dining table, it was just recessed lights, and I chose to do a chandelier. So, you know, things like that. In the primary bedroom, it has this amazing floating bed in the middle, which is original to the house, and again, very 80s, and I loved that. So that I kept. And up there I just did wallpaper and light fixtures and drapery. So the gut renovation, like the hard work, happened in the bathrooms, But the rest of it was pretty aesthetic and just decoration, which was really nice. So then we go into my bedroom suite. This glass block wall I left as an homage to the 80s, to that postmodern, and I really love it. And on the other side of this is my shower that we'll see in a moment, where there's a skylight, and so the light pours through, and I just love that transparency. So this is going into my bedroom. So this is my bedroom. This is one of my favorite rooms in the house because you just feel like you're on the prow of a ship. It has this big round window with the perfect view, and I love that the bed is floating in the middle. This was how it originally was. This headboard slash dresser with the built-in nightstands was all here when I purchased the house. And it's perfect the way it just floats in the middle of the room. The house also has these amazing corner windows, and I feel like you really get a sense of it here, being like wrapped in the windows and the light. I love the vaulted ceiling in this room. It gives it this amazing height. And this is actually another pair of prints by my friend Ron Shureskin, which I just thought were perfect for this spot. I have some vintage pottery pieces in here mixed in with some fun shoes that get worn sometimes on the 4th of July. And this piece of art here is by an artist named Justin Goodman, and I commissioned it just for this huge wall. I didn't really know what to do with it, and I couldn't find the right piece of art, and so I worked with him, and he created this piece. And it's so cool because in person, I don't know if you can tell on camera, it looks like Venetian plaster, you know, and I think it's brilliant. I think he needs to be discovered. And then over here is a sculpture that I found in the Paris flea market, and again, I thought it's so interesting the way that this relates to Justin's piece, to Ron's piece. So it was really an unintentional theme, the way that all of these things sort of relate to each other, but I love it. It was meant to be. This round window, again, original to the house, but when I wake up in the morning, I open the shade and voila, you know, you're looking right out to the water. I can come up here, see if any of my guests are up, because I am usually the last one to get out of bed, and just kind of get a vibe of what's going on downstairs, see the weather. It's just a really peaceful way to start the day with this view. So another cool feature about my bedroom suite is that it has this private mezzanine space out here. So this is just another space that overlooks the living room. To be honest, it doesn't get used so much, but it looks really pretty from the other side. But out here, I have my own private patio. So out here I have my own private deck. It's always in the shade in the morning, so it's a great place for me to do yoga or to do my abs workout. And then it's just a beautiful place to come and look out and see what's going on. You know, you can see down onto the pool deck. I love watching the boats go by. That cool vintage ship out there. It's just a really, really peaceful place to hang out when you need to just kind of be on your own. So right here in my private mezzanine, I have this chaise by Thomas Pheasant. It's called a kimono. Get it through Maguire. It's super comfy. And it has these really beautiful details on the end, which, I don't know, there's something kind of Roman about it, but I still love the caning on the end. So one of the other many things I love about Fire Island is that there's really very little light pollution out here, so you see a billion stars. When I first bought this house, my mom gave me this telescope as a housewarming present, so it's easy to just take it out there at night and look up and see what's going on in the universe too. So then right off my bedroom is the primary bathroom. So this room I totally got renovated. It used to have a very 80s giant jacuzzi tub. It was red marble. The glass block extended all the way around the shower. The toilet was just hanging out under the window. So I completely reorganized the plan in this space. And I used this onyx, which I know people usually think of onyx as being very fancy, but this gray onyx, when you hone it, I would argue it has a very like beachy, organic kind of feeling, and I think it's totally appropriate. I love the shower, which has, so we have double shower heads, I have the big skylight in there, and it's just a really nice way to wake up in the morning and feel like you're outside without being outside yet. And then I love the natural light of having the window over the sink, and having 2 sinks, of course, is paramount for any relationship. So this is the drag closet. This is where a lot of fun happens. So in here, as you can see, we just have many different wigs and headpieces to choose from. These are all outfits that have been collected from different parties, or like people come and just donate things. You know, like literally some friends came a few weeks ago and just left this caftan. Like you never know what's gonna show up. And yeah, we just keep all the stuff you need to get into a really fun outfit. And I also know if I ever find a feather in my house, someone's been in the drag closet. And then of course, ruling over the drag closet is this, which was a gag gift from someone. And that's a story for when we all have a cocktail. So yeah, all these costumes were collected over the years from different things. This was for a hat and heels party where I played my part. Her name was Lucy Stool, and she was from Palm Beach, and she was going on safari. Then of course there's like the pineapple purse that you never know when you might need that. This Amy Winehouse wig I actually used for a Dia de los Muertos bride one time. I feel like this is definitely something you need when you are gonna tell a fortune. It's also very Norma Desmond, isn't it? So, you know, oh, this we had, Pine's party theme this year was Galactic Cowboy. So we have some of these things. And then before I get any nasty comments, these are vintage furs that were part of the drag closet that came with the house. And this is also faux, by the way. Speaking of, everyone on Fire Island has drag of some sort. I don't think everyone has a closet like this, although I think there are a few people out there that probably beat me as well. So anyone that says that drag is tearing away at the fabric of our society, gays would never harm fabric. You know, one thing about this house that really shocked me when I first walked in is the fact that it felt like a house I could have designed. There literally was not anything architecturally about the house that I disliked or wanted to change. And there were so many details in here that are things that I actually do in my own practice. So in a weird way, it felt like I did design the house in so many aspects, and that's one of the other reasons I love it so much. I think my favorite thing about this house is the amount of natural light that it gets. We literally do not have to turn a single light on until the sun goes down, mainly due to this giant skylight that's in the middle of the 2-story living room, and it just floods the whole space with light. All the showers have skylights in them. All of the rooms have big open, sliding glass doors, and so we just open up the house every day. As soon as we get up, we open all the sliding glass doors and open the windows, and you get this wonderful breeze through it all the time. So the openness and the airiness and the light, that's just really what I love about the house. I mean, obviously there's the view, duh, but can't pick them all. So speaking of outside, you need to see where we really live, which is outside. So now I've shown you inside, but now I gotta show you where we really live, which is outside. So we call this space the loggia, and this is really where we are, I would say 90% of the time. Weather permitting, even if it's a little chilly, we're gonna be out here. It's just the best way to take in the views. It's an intimate seating area. Everyone can just hang out. The number of laps we have on this porch should be illegal. It's the best place to be, and it's really where everyone just automatically comes together. So actually the furniture on this porch, these were original to the house. Like, it's amazing. They're old David Sutherland, or I should say vintage David Sutherland. They're original to the house. They're vintage David Sutherland, and I just recovered the cushions. And then this is a really nice ceramic table that I found on First Dibs. And this, her name is Joyce. She's an ashtray, and it's a Haas Brothers piece, and I just thought she was a lot of fun for any of my friends that happen to smoke. I found the secret to entertaining especially in Fire Island, is just letting everyone be themselves. Like, if someone wants to have a cigarette, they can have a cigarette. We can have drinks. Everyone can just be themselves and talk, and I love bringing together people of different age groups. I mean, that's the other amazing thing. We have people out here that are trailblazers that have been coming out here since the 60s and 70s. So to bring them together with my younger friends and to share those stories, it's really amazing. And then half the time we're not even talking about things that heavy. Half the time it's just gossip and fun and joking around. And so I just find that this is a place where people from all different backgrounds and different age groups can come together and just relax and be themselves, and that's the best part about this island. Some nights we'll just randomly have like drag contests among our friends where you have like 5 minutes to go upstairs and get in an outfit and come down, and then you get judged. So, you know, it's just a big part of the fun and a big part of the culture out here. So, coming down onto the deck, obviously we have the pool. I keep the pool at 92 degrees at all times. I'm a big baby when it comes to cold water. So we have a few sitting areas out here. So this one is obviously more of a lounge area. Sunset happens somewhere right over there. And we get the most gorgeous sunsets over the water. So we have this whole bench area out here where you can come to watch the sunsets, or right over here. Of course, we have the lounge chairs that we move around to make sure you're in the sun at the right time of the day. And then over here is the dining area where we oftentimes have brunch. And again, it's just nice to sit by the water. I mean, as you can see, there's always some kind of movement. You get the boats going by, you see the ferry when it comes in and out. But the beauty of being on the bay to me is the serenity. Of course, the ocean is gorgeous. I mean, who doesn't love being on the ocean too? But to me, that's like very kinetic energy, and it's always, you know, so much in motion. And yeah, I love that, and I love to go visit it. But here, it's always very placid and peaceful. Plus, when you're on the beach, you live in a fishbowl because the beach is a public place and people can see up into your house, you know, day and night. And here, it's very private and we don't have to worry about any of that. So I really love the peacefulness and the privacy of the bayside. So one thing I added right off the bat was a bar. So I put this baby in right after I bought the house. But back here I have the refrigerator and ice maker, so it's just a really quick way to grab a drink. But also when I have a group of people over, I'll sometimes just hire a bartender to come and work back here and keep the drinks flowing. So this is like one of my favorite parts. But also people say it looks like a DJ booth, so I really have thought about getting that whole DJ setup back here too. In contrast to the front of the house, the back of the house is much more dynamic and interesting. The front, perfect symmetry. The back doesn't have that at all. I love the glass corners, the corner windows that are all through here in the dining room and upstairs in my room. And you can see that it actually has a bit of a gable roof up there, which is something on the front where it's totally flat, so it's totally different than that. So it is a lot more inviting and open, and it's really lending itself to the water and to the view and to the entertaining aspect of what goes on back here. So I enjoy that dichotomy between the front and the back of the house. So one story was when I had my first housewarming party here, I hired a drag queen from Cherry Grove to come over and perform. And she started her performance on the upstairs porch, and then she went to run down the staircase in the middle of the song, and I had roped off the staircase to keep people from going upstairs, and she didn't see the rope. So she completely wiped out. That was, I shouldn't be laughing, but she had on a Vegas showgirl outfit, and it was all these green feathers, and literally I found green feathers in the house for about 2 months. So then there's also another sort of tradition that they do in Cherry Grove where the drag queens at the end of their songs will oftentimes jump in the pool. Well, I had just put the brand new black pool liner in, and so my friend said to her, if you're gonna jump in the pool, you have to take your shoes off first because there's a lot of pool liners that have been damaged by high heels out here. So she was doing the performance, her final number, and she came up here to this raised porch and she takes her shoes off. And I was like, okay, so she's gonna jump in the pool. And I thought she would go down the stairs and jump in the pool. And then I realized she was jumping from here. Now, my pool is only about 4.5 feet deep at the deepest end. Not only did she not just like cannonball, she did a head first dive into the pool. Literally everyone at the party was like, oh, and I just pictured that her entire family was gonna own my house because clearly she was gonna snap her neck. But luckily she did a little shallow dive in and she just kind of bumped her head at the end, but she was fine. Came up with no wig on and eyelashes dangling off and all was good. Because of the nature of Fire Island itself, we only get to enjoy this house about 6 months out of the year. During the winter, it's closed down, water off, shut. There's no businesses, nothing. But for the 6 months that we're here, home here to me is all about friends and family and the relationships out here. I love filling this house with all the people that I love and care about. And I also love the solitude of it. I love just the way that when you get on that ferry, all your stress melts away. You're out here, you're on the water. You know, here on the bay, we have a lot of privacy and we can just hang out and relax as much as we want to. And then we have fun dinners and we just, you know, we make it whatever we want it to be. But really, it's the opportunity to spend quality time with friends and family that makes this house so special to me. Okay, Homeworthy, thank you so much for coming. It's been great to have you, but I gotta get ready for tea. Maybe get some more scandals for the book. So, see you later. Thank you, bye.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Avery. Welcome to my Santa Monica Beach bungalow. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Scan the QR code to subscribe to our new channel, Weddingworthy, where we celebrate amazing couples and the love stories behind their perfect day.
Hi, I'm Avery Burridge. I'm a content creator and we are in my Santa Monica bungalow. My fiance and I were looking to move in together for the first time, so I was looking on Zillow for Santa Monica apartments and this one popped up. I came to view it and then within 24 hours we had the apartment. We've now been here for about 2 years and we plan to be here until someone kicks us out, I think. What really drew me to this apartment, which is interesting because it's not really my favorite part, but was the kitchen that you'll see in a little bit, because it honestly reminded me of my best friend from home's kitchen where she grew up. So it felt super homey. And then on top of it, there's a ton of great natural light in here. You'll see like the floor to ceiling windows in the living room. So I saw just like a ton of potential to make it my own, essentially. My vision for this apartment was taking some of the pieces I already owned, like this couch, my coffee table, and just adding to it. It was really just a blank canvas. Some of the renovations that I did that were renter friendly were, I did have my landlord paint the walls, which is a good hack, is usually if you ask, they can paint them. They weren't white, they were kind of like a gross yellow before. And then you'll also see like we ditched some of like the really ugly curtains and we put in our own curtains. A few other things you'll see across the room are like peel and stick wallpaper. We also changed out some ugly lighting that you'll see in the back as well and put our own chandelier in. So I was able to make some tweaks that were renter friendly, like I said, to make it kind of my own. So welcome to the entryway / dining room. You'll see this room is really an open concept, which is one of the things I loved about it. So when you first walk in, I just wanted something as like a little bit of a showstopper. So I have this really cute CB2 little like table that fit perfectly in this space. And also from CB2, which I love, this is where we put our dog, all of our dog's stuff. So like his toys, his leash, and it's kind of fun because it's a little hidden thing. I think it's actually made for like a kid's room, but for us, it's made for a dog. I wanted to be like a little chicer than having his toys everywhere. And then to kind of add to the California vibe, we have this like very Venice looking book, which I thought would just like kind of kickstart the vibe of our whole home. And then this mirror, honestly, this is where I go before I leave the house, have a little check with my lip gloss, my makeup, and it gives everyone a chance to just get a little check on what they look like. So moving over, you'll see this is our dining room area. Again, very open. This is where we do all of our entertaining. We'll eat here, and we'll usually start actually like with drinks and stuff in the living room, which you'll see in a little bit. But as you may be able to tell, my favorite color is blue. I didn't want to go blue overload in this whole apartment, so this tablescape gave me an opportunity to do that color here and not feel like it's the whole apartment. So this tablecloth I love. It's actually from Nikki Kehoe over in California here in Los Angeles. And I did a little play of like that beachy vibe, some old and new. So I love, again, blue and natural colors. These are really great Addison Roth candlesticks. I actually added them to my registry, so a little pro tip for brides, like loved that. And then I mentioned I like a little mix of the old and new. So what I did here is these are all antique vases and ginger jars, and it's actually from a local spot where I'm from in Chicago called Yankee Peddler Hinsdale. So definitely recommend. She has such a great curation there, and I always go home and crack up. My fiance's like, here she comes again with like another bag of antiques. So love these. And then when setting the table, I always want to make it feel a little more interesting. You know, like as we're getting older, I want it to feel more formal, but sometimes you don't always have the budget to have the nice china. So this is a great napkin from Hudson Grace, again, adding to the blue theme, but to kind of go from like budget to old to like more expensive. These are Stone Lane, actually, from Bed Bath & Beyond. And then beneath them, which I love, these are from my mom, who's also an interior designer. So she gifted me these. These are my favorite plates growing up, so I feel so honored to have them in my home now. And then again, kind of below it is another Stone Lane plate. Jenny Kane Home placemat to kind of go into the beachy vibe. And then this is one of my favorite hacks for renters, people on a budget. If you love the Sabre Paris silverware, these are actually from Target. They're a little more interesting than your typical stainless steel. So this was one of my favorite finds that I had here. And this is kind of like what I would set the table like if we were entertaining, just to kind of like set the scene. We're adults now and have a fun little party vibe. Along with this room, we did some like renter-friendly hacks in here as well. So you'll see this is actually something we brought in. So the light, of course, wasn't centered in this rental. So we actually did a little hook here and made the light centered of the room. And then as you can see behind here, we've also added our own curtains. This is a great find from Crate and Barrel. People are always asking like, where are your curtains from? And we got these on like mega sale. I want to say they were like $11 to $20. So this was a great find. These were some vertical blinds before, and they were such an eyesore. So like, I love that these still bring in the light, but add a little privacy as well. And then right before we enter the kitchen, this is kind of like our personal touch. So these are actually matchbooks of my fiance and I's favorite spots. So like, this is a restaurant and diner in Santa Monica we always used to go to. This is where we spend a lot of time in Dana Point. And then some of our other favorite restaurants, and you'll see it actually includes the date that he asked me to be his girlfriend and then the time we came official, which is funny. So this is one of actually the first gifts that I ever gave him, which I love. So that's front and center in our living room, dining room area. And then the chairs here, you'll find like different variations of these. So I honestly had these 4 chairs in my last apartment when it was just myself. So these are something I brought over. You can find like great looks for less of these on Amazon. And then these end chairs, I felt that we needed so we can always have 2 couples instead of just one other couple in our house. And they're kind of like, again, a Jenny Kane look for less. These are essentials for living. And they're such a great find, really easy to clean, which I love because people's hands get it all dirty. But this is a way where instead of spending $700 a chair, they're like $200 each, which was a really great steal. But I love how they're kind of just end chairs that add a little more than just these 4 chairs to the dining room. Having this open floor concept, one thing I do love is if I am cooking when having friends over, sometimes I'll do takeout and pretend I cooked. But I love the open kitchen concept where it kind of feels like a kitchen island. I'll usually set up like drinks or an ice bucket here and then be cooking in this section as well. And this just allows me to be part of the conversation, which I love, instead of feeling like you're just in the kitchen by yourself when you're hosting. So this is a big selling point for me for the house too, is it's roomy to cook and entertain, but you're also still part of the whole floor plan as well. How I started in this was, honestly, I was able to live alone for the first time, which I felt very fortunate about. And I absolutely loved that apartment. And it was my first time where I didn't have roommates where I thought they were gonna like ruin some of my things that I brought in. You weren't like splitting the cost of furniture or just like taking whatever you could because it's what you could afford at the time. So once I had my own space, I was able to decorate it the way I wanted because I knew hopefully no one else was ruining it, even if they came over. And I honestly started posting that apartment onto TikTok. And from there, like people started asking me questions, asking me where things were from. So I kind of just continued from there, posting that apartment, outfits of the day, my general lifestyle in California, and it's gotten to here where I am today. I would say my personal style is very California chic with a little bit of like old and new combined. As we go through the house, I think you'll see like that very beachy chic vibe, I guess we can call it, along with some like very curated antique pieces. A lot of my style is influenced by my mom, who's an interior designer. So I grew up around antiques, the love of art, but also having a love for decorating the home. So I think we could call it like California beach chic with a little old and new. My favorite room, which I think most people would agree with, is probably our living room. The light that comes through on a sunny day just like makes it feel so warm in here. And I love the tones of the entire room as well. This is where we spend most of our time. We don't have a TV in our bedroom, for example, so this is where we watch our favorite shows. This is where we entertain. So I'd say definitely our living room. So now you've seen the entryway and our dining area. So I'm gonna take you over to kind of the showstopper of the apartment is the living room. So I know we mentioned I do the entertaining over there, but we really start kind of drinks and entertaining in this room. How I thought about this room is, one, it's such a great open space, so we were able to have a lot of seating, which I feel very fortunate about. A few things I wanted to kind of point out is I actually already owned one of these living spaces couches. They're super comfortable in my last apartment, and I was able to find the exact one on Facebook Marketplace for much less than a brand new one. So that was something where I could easily match a couch that I already had. And then things that I already had in my last apartment too that were just a natural fit in here was this coffee table from Crate & Barrel. I loved the natural wood, kind of for that like beachy chic vibe again. And then again, this is more of like that mix of old and new, I would say. So obsessed with candles everywhere. This is one of my favorite scents by Voyage at Sea. I probably said that wrong, but it's a great scent. It's actually the Los Angeles scent, which I love because that's where we're located. I love mixing in different metals as well right now. So love this silver tray from Williams Sonoma. And then these two candlesticks are actually from Amber Interiors, who's also here in California. And I'm obsessed with hydrangeas. I try not to go hydrangea overload every week or two when I do new flowers. But these, I love that they pull in the colors of the room, and I'll probably be including these in my wedding, which is kind of fun to have them in my house at all times as well. One of the things that I think people love the most is this piece of art, as well as these shell sconces. So a little bit about the shell sconces. These are actually meant to be hardwired as if they're really a real light, but I can't do that because I'm a renter. So I actually just had these mounted. And then what you'll see here is I got Amazon lights in here, and just to like turn them on via remote, it adds the illusion that they're in the wall, but they can light up, and they're one of my favorite things. When I was kind of looking to decorate my apartment, I saw these and I was like, I'm gonna find an apartment where I can put these somewhere in my house and it's gonna be like a part of the room. So that's what I did here. And then this art piece is actually a Slim Aaron's art piece. I got it, it's a print. It's from Fine Art America. And it's actually surfers based in Laguna Beach. So my fiance, he's from Newport Beach. We spend a lot of time in Orange County in general. So this was a natural fit for this room because it's a place that means a little something to us and also goes with that like beachy vibe that we were going for. Looking at the couch, again, I mentioned that I didn't want to go blue crazy. So I tried to add different textures and elements into this part of the room. So you'll see there's a more mix of like beige, brown, green, and blue. These great pillowcases I actually got from Etsy. It's a great kind of hack I have. Like if you're looking to like switch out pillowcases, like Etsy's a great place to start when you're just looking for something a little different, not sold in the stores per se. And then they matched perfectly with this light blue, so still bringing in the light blue. This is a Crate & Barrel pillow as well. So I kind of just did whatever you see on this couch, you'll see exactly on the couch facing it. Because the key to comfort is making sure you have comfy pillows from when, one, you're entertaining, but two, we both spend a lot of time on these couches watching our favorite show. One thing I think is funny, like this is my couch and that couch over there is my fiance's couch, and we just sit on our couches and like watch whatever we love. So it's kind of funny that we have our own little couches. Moving over here, so sometimes the TV is quite an eyesore, so I try to make it still fun below, despite that it's just like a big black screen on our wall. So I wanted to add some natural elements with still bringing in that like rattan beachy feel. So this is a great little fern here. And then again, mixing some little bit of old. These two bookends are again from that Yankee Peddler store where I grew up, antique as well, along with this little blue dog. Our puppy used to like bark at him all the time thinking he was a real dog, which is really funny. And then some personal touches of like Nick and I on one of our first like trips, big trips together, and then bringing in those metals again and more lighting here with this little lamp from Williams-Sonoma as well. Another thing that people always ask me about, which I think is so funny, is everyone's like, where did you get these pillows that are underneath your coffee table? And it's actually funny, it came with the living spaces couches as like kind of ends to it, but we just put it here to like, let's say Nick and I are being lazy and we want to eat our meals here at the table, like I'll just sit on one of these poofs. Or now it's become essentially a dog bed for our puppy, which is really nice. So they're really just part of this couch that comes with it, but I didn't want to use it. And then this rug was something before I moved into this house, like I knew I was gonna put this rug in our house. It's from Rush House. And what's really unique about it is each of these squares are like hand woven. So let's say one kind of becomes a little undone or gets messed up, you can actually just buy a square and weave it in yourself. So the rug kind of always feels new if you need to, and it's super easy to do so. So that's one thing I liked. I didn't want it to feel like something that would get super dirty if people wear shoes. And then we have a dog as well, so kind of hides a lot of dirt, I will say. So these two chairs, again, we love to entertain and have friends over. I had one of these chairs in my last apartment, which was great. And lucky for me, Crate & Barrel then again had this chair still in stock. So I just bought this chair, like the second one of it, so we could match. This little table is for like when people are coming over and they want to set their drink down or something, they can do so right here. And I felt like it matched perfectly with the whole look of the room. And then this bar cart, I love. It's been with me since I graduated college. It came from Chicago all the way over to California. So any of my previous roommates would recognize this bar cart because it was like one of my first more expensive purchases. It's from Serena and Lily. It's right now, of course, it's on display of like when we're not entertaining it, just like to look cute. But this is where we come over. We'll grab our champagne to put on ice. This is where we'll get the fancy glasses out for our guests. And I love that. And I also included a little ode to my home of Chicago with these Chicago coasters, Wrigley Field. Go Cubs. I'm a Cubs fan, not a Sox fan. So anyone else there might relate to that. Last but not least is this beautiful plant. So it was super happy in this house. It grew like probably another foot after we moved in here. But this was gifted from my mom, actually, and it was something, thankfully, I've been able to keep alive for at least 2.5 years. I was a little nervous, but the natural sun that comes into this living room, I think, makes that plant and us super happy. And then one thing I'll also point out, similar to our dining room, we put the same curtains over here. So we had the really ugly vertical curtains that you might have seen like in one of your previous apartments or apartments in general. We got these again on mega sale at Crate & Barrel. Just had a TaskRabbit put this rod in for us. And it changed the room, honestly, and made it look much more fancy than it is. And it still gives you that privacy at night, which of course we need because these are huge windows and the other building can always look in very easily. So what has really inspired me to be interested in making a home and decorating is definitely my mom. She is an interior designer, so she really taught me and probably my siblings everything we know about making a home feel like I said, a home. So I'd say she's definitely been my inspiration in this apartment, as well as like my love for decorating in general. I love entertaining. I honestly wish we did more, but we do entertain a lot. We like to have either dinner parties or we will do game nights as well with my fiance and another couple. And it was important for me to be a space where both me and my fiance love to come to, but it's something that I was proud to bring friends over to as well, where they could feel cozy and at home while we're like eating takeout or cooking them a nice dinner. Within the living room, we also have my office, because again, super open concept. This desk has been with me for quite some time too. It's actually CB2. Very cute, Serena and Lily. We don't have a ton of lighting naturally in this house during nighttime, so like having lamps around for that like soft lighting is really important. This right here is one of the most beloved gifts that I got from my mom actually. She gifted each of my siblings one of these pieces by Grace Weaver. So this is her actual original art. This was given to me as a child. I definitely love Capri Suns. I'd make them into the phone as everyone would do. I was born in the 90s, so not everyone might not relate to that, but this had to be as like a showstopper in the room too, because that was one of the best gifts I've ever received. This is a great chair from Lulu in Georgia that I actually got recently. I thought it really tied into the pillows and the colors of our living room really well. And then another kind of old mix here is like a little antique vase, my favorite calendar from Karen Adams. And to make the desk not feel super white, this is honestly just an Amazon little pad. So this is my working space where I do all the magic happens, I guess you can say. I think what gives a house or a home a soul is the people and the memories that you fill it with. And that can be who you have over as your friends. It could be who you're sharing the house with. So for this example, it's my fiance. And then we, as you'll see, of course, as we tour the house, we're collecting things of memories. So photos from our first trips across the world, art that has been passed down from my family. So I think a lot of it just holds some of the best memories as well. So I'm going to take you into our bedroom, but before we get there, I want to show you some great renter-friendly hacks that I think is really important for everyone to know about. So the first one being is this is actually covering a very heinous light there's nothing I can do about. So this is a great little hack that I found out, and it's from Tulip Shades, and it's renter friendly. They're up there with little command strips, and you just pop it up and it covers it and makes it feel way more chic and like elevated than whatever light is underneath there. So that's one hack that I have for you all. And then the next hack that I think everyone should know about, if they don't already, is peel and stick wallpaper. So typically when renting, the bathrooms usually aren't super cute. So one way I wanted to make it, again, super beachy and just feel a little more chic is this is Serena and Lily's peel and stick wallpaper. So my fiance and I actually installed this ourselves. I don't know if I'd recommend. It was definitely a tough day for us when we were doing this. And then this is another beloved original art that I was gifted for my birthday. It's by Sarah Baba. She's a photographer. And this is something I love. It was kind of hard to find a place for it, to be honest, but above the bathroom, it looks so great. And then the only other hack in making a bathroom look a little cuter is just like put above the toilet like a nice candle. We have some of our favorite matchbooks from our travels, and it just adds a little element to the bathroom that I think is just really nice. Before entering our bedroom, you'll see we have some little art decorations. So that's another thing, is I love putting all of our art hung across our apartment. The first one, this is again gifted actually by my parents. They traveled to Cuba together and they brought home each of us one of these tiles, which is super cool. And then this was gifted by my mom. She had went to Italy and brought this back for Christmas, which I thought these went really nice together. And then I'll only point this out because this is one of the few things that my fiance was actually able to keep to hang in the house, and he went to Chapel Hill in North Carolina. So I did allow him to hang the bell tower in our apartment. Coming into our, I guess, primary bedroom, you'll see very bright during the day. I wanted to kind of feel like a cloud in here, so that's what I definitely accomplished with our bedroom. I'll start by pointing out I have another tulip shade in here. It's again one of my favorite hacks. We're covering up a really ugly light, and I think it just takes away and like goes in the room very nicely. The bed is definitely the main part of the room. So this is my favorite cloud duvet by Parachute Home. We mixed it in with a cloud blanket actually. This is from Boll and Branch. So I have quite a mixture of different beddings. So I've tested it all out. And then these two pillows are from Crate & Barrel. I love having just like a big pillow to make the bed look super fluffy. And then I always pair our beds with Euro shams, and then we have two pillows behind it. But again, I wanted to still bring in the blue of here, but I think adding just like the natural and lightness into the bed to make it again feel like a little piece of heaven was super important to me. The bed frame is by Restoration Hardware. So this was one of our bigger investments, I would say, as a couple, but we upgraded to a king bed when we moved in here, and it was definitely one of the best decisions we ever made. So I cannot recommend that enough. This also, I think, is one of my favorite areas of the house. So we have both sides have these nightstands by Crate & Barrel as well. And then I also saw these two kind of lampshades here from Serene and Lily before I came into the house. So that was something I always wanted to bring in this apartment. They are not hardwired, which is super nice. They actually just plug into the wall, so super renter friendly as well. Had a TaskRabbit hang those up, which was really easy and nice. And this is my side. I don't know if you can tell, but I always like to have fresh flowers. This is actually original art, again, from a friend's store back at home in Chicago. And I always have like a little candle to set the mood. Sometimes I like to do turn down service, like a hotel in our bedroom, and I'll light the candle and take down the bed. But this is my little side. And moving across the room, we have my dresser and kind of like little area, I'd say, to add some more elements here. This dresser has also been with me forever. I've had it since I lived in Chicago. This is from CB2 as well. This is a great natural kind of like beachy vibe as well to go with the lampshades by our bed. This is from Mark and Day. And then this actually is one of our newest pieces. I went to an estate sale. It was Annie Myers, Nancy Myers' daughter's estate sale actually. And I couldn't believe that this starburst mirror was actually here. So it's completely vintage. You'll see like it's actually missing a little piece, but I think it adds so much character. Another example of kind of mixing that old and new in here, which I really loved. And then this is just like a little vanity area I have for myself. So this is kind of like my room, but we sleep here, of course, together. So this is Nick's side. We wanted to make it feel still like not super girly. So he has stuff relating to skiing, which he loves. And then one thing I didn't point out in Crate & Barrel side tables were they have actually chargers in here, which I love because it hides chargers from being out in the room. So it takes away from like having to have wires out, which I really loved as well. One of my favorite design tips is mostly because apartments don't really have recessed lighting, is adding in lights where you can. So we did it with our sconces here. We did it with a little light on my dresser here. So I think just adding little lamps to have that soft lighting at night is one of my favorite tips. Home means to me is every time we travel, anytime we're going to weddings, trips, in the end, at the end of each of those trips, I can't wait to come back here. And I think that's what makes it a home. I look forward to getting into those clean sheets that we leave the house in, coming onto this couch as well. So I think it's just a place that you always want to come back to. Thanks so much for coming, Homeworthy, but I gotta go. It's too nice of a Saturday to be sitting inside all day. See you next time.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Anne. Welcome to my home in Laguna Beach. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is Anne Malang, and I'm a designer. I have a background in art history and landscape architecture, but I also built up a home furnishings business in Sweden and ran that for many years and continue to work with Swedish design. So that's my expertise, is bringing Swedish design into America and working as a designer with that aesthetic. So we're in Laguna Beach, California, and this house actually was the house that my parents lived in when I started college. So they moved here for work. My dad was an environmental engineer and my mom was a teacher. So they got relocated here, and it was right when I started college. So I was going to the Claremont colleges and studying art history. And so it was a place I would just come home to visit occasionally on the weekends. And then when I went up to UC Berkeley to study landscape architecture and did my graduate work there, I would come back. So it's a home that was really meant for empty nesters. It just had 2 bedrooms and this little living area. So it's a home that we have kind of changed now by adding a second story and bringing in a lot of more design ideas from our travels and our life living in Sweden. So it's a different house now, but it's still very much part of my parents' original legacy. So welcome to my dining area. This room is a little bit representative of what we did later, because we had Swedish Gustavian pieces that are the pieces that we were most well known for, this is actually an old Gustavian piece from Sweden that we shipped over from Stockholm. But we had a store in Santa Monica, and we brought in Belgian pieces and pieces from the south of France and European beach resorts. So this table is sort of set with those pieces. So this is a Belgian table. And then this is also Belgium china. And then I have my Swedish glasses from the company I work with, which was called Ramier. And they're a heritage glass company that has been making glass since the 1800s in the deep forest of Sweden, where they have lots of wood and they can put the fires to hand blow the glass. So this glass is a champagne glass. It's actually was for the royal family of Sweden, and they commissioned it. And then it became so popular that we continued to produce it for our, other customers. But the nice thing about these pieces are that we'll use these for everyday dinners as well. It's very elegant, but at the same time, you can feel the weight is quite heavy. So you can feel very comfortable using it. It's not something that feels precious or overly, that you have to be overly careful about. These pieces are also designed by the Swedish design company called Ramier, and this is called the Lina vase, which was designed by Thomas Sandell, and he's an architect in Sweden. The other thing that we really like to do in Sweden is not do like a formal arrangement. We'd rather go out into the meadow and pick wildflowers that kind of feel like you've just picked them out of a field. So I tried to do floral arrangements that are more that kind of feeling rather than something that's overly done. And that is very typical Swedish. The other thing we do is we always light candles. Even if it's just a regular school night, we always have candles lit. And that comes from my time living in Sweden. And these pieces are from the glass company, but also from a company I work with called Skultuna, which makes brass. And they've been making brass since the 1600s. So they also were purveyors to the royal family. So some of the pieces are very old, like this piece, it's called the Lily. And that piece was designed for the World Fair in 1939. So that's an older piece. These pieces are designed, they're called the Tulip, and they're designed by Pierre Forchel. And he was a quite well-known designer in the 1950s, working in Sweden, so he worked for Skultuna as well. So we always light candles in the evening. And then these are 2 lamps that my brother found, and I just love the natural shell feeling that it reminds us that we're close to the beach, and it gives such a nice quiet light in the evening. And the other fun thing is these little lobster napkin holders. I found these in a little store in Gothenburg in Sweden. We've used these for dinners where we have friends, but we've also taken them out to the islands in Sweden. We'll set up a picnic, and we like to gather with our friends and bring some fresh seafood and put these like formal napkins out on an island. That's kind of also very Swedish, to do something formal in an informal setting. So in the winter, we bring this into our home. And these pieces are also from Skultuna, and they are actually just for putting hot plates on. But one of the things that I love about Swedish design is that there's always form and function. So, everything that I have ever worked with in Sweden, as far as design goes, has been something that was beautifully designed, but it had a function. So this is just to put your hot pot on, but it's so beautiful. And the same goes for the other piece, which is also just meant to put a hot plate on. But it's also such a beautiful piece. It's almost like a piece of art in itself, the way it's designed. And that's a hallmark of Swedish design, is that they're very frugal about their use of things. You wouldn't design something just to make it beautiful. It has to have a function. And I think that's something that you see as we go through the house. So this rug is from Serena and Lily, and this rug as well. And we wanted to do something that had stripes, which is also a very Swedish kind of motif, but something in sisal that was super resistant to dogs and beach walks and sand. So, those are the two pieces that we have here. And then we also have, in contrast to this beautiful original Swedish Gustavian piece, we have some of the pieces from our collection, the Belgian pieces that we brought over to our store. So this is a china cabinet that keeps all our Swedish glass and a lot of our English porcelain china that I love. So that kind of fits in with this look. And also I thought it felt really nice with this sofa. This sofa was my grandmother's, and I actually sat on the sofa with her learning to needlepoint, and she taught me to sew. And so it had a very special place. She had it in her house in San Francisco. It had like a dull yellow faded fabric on it. So I found this kind of fun Ralph Lauren Saint-Tropez motif, and I kind of gave it new life. And I think it fits into this sort of Provençal, south of France feeling that we were trying to create in this living area. So these pieces are actually from my grandparents' house in New England, and they lived in Hingham, and they lived out on the Cape. And I mean, these are really like actually old irons that my grandmother actually used. So I love those. And they're chimney set. And I'm sure this was just an old copper bucket, and this was a bed warmer, I believe. So I think you warmed up your bed at night with this. But this came from their old house in New England, and I thought it fit nicely with the fireplace here, because this is actually from my store, from our Belgium company, and we had it as just a setup for our furnishings lines. And then I thought, well, that fits perfectly here when we redid the house. So we just brought it home from the store and put it in here. And then this was a mirror that we found at a secondhand store. And with the shells, it also reminds us of kind of our connection to the beach here. And we're always bringing shells home from trips where we travel, whether it would be we've been to the Bahamas or to Hawaii, and so you'll see shells all throughout the house. We're always gathering them and bringing them home. And when we redid the fireplace, when we redid the whole house, I found this nice hand-painted tile from Santa Barbara, and really it reminded me also of some of the hotels and places we'd stayed in France. So I thought that was a nice addition too, and kind of connected with the pavers and the tiles here in the living area. So this house is very much a combination of the two styles that are my big influences, which are Sweden and Swedish design, and using lots of light and creating a serene and calm environment, and very much the background of my grandparents from New England who lived in Cape Cod and Nantucket, and their furnishings and also design style. And if you think about Swedish design and New England style design, the beach interiors are very similar with the light colors and bringing light in and creating a very informal environment that you can sort of have beautiful dinners but also relax and feel like you can throw your shoes off after you've been at the beach. Okay, so now I'd like to take you out to the patio, and this is where we have our kind of dinners during the summer or al fresco lunches. We sit here quite often, and we have done kind of the same thing using some of the glass pieces from the Swedish company I work with to create a sort of green and pink sort of spring theme. These plates are designed by Thomas Sandell as well for Ramier glass, and they're very heavy, so they feel very sturdy. They're not light, like you would think that they would be very, very delicate, but they're not. And we added these little these would be used for a cordial or an aquavit type of drink in Sweden. They would have this at midsummer, which is the biggest celebration of the year. But you could also use them for like a little mini martini or a little ice cream, a little scoop of ice cream at the end of dinner. And then we've added these mambo glasses, which are also hand blown in this beautiful pink color, and the little bubble vases that we use for votives. So we would light candles at night when we were out here. And then this is the Ebba vase, which is also made by Ramier. And it is a beautiful vase. It's one that was made, a different version of it for Svenskt Tenn, which is a beautiful store that I love in Stockholm. And we provide, this glass company makes special pieces for them. So there's a vase that's very similar to this there. But this one is made for us, especially in the American market. And we kind of do the same thing with doing very informal wildflowers, which is the way I like to set tables for any kind of dinner or lunch. And the tablecloth is actually inspired by a company that I love called DP and J Baker. And they were two brothers who worked in England creating fabrics for fabric houses, but they traveled a lot in Asia. So this is the one that's called Magnolia. And Svenskt Tenn sells this pattern in the fabric as well, but I found this tablecloth and I thought it was a little nod to Svenskt Tenn and this sort of Asian influence, which I love to combine with the Swedish pieces. This carafe is also something that I think is just really beautifully designed. We just use it for water, but it's such an elegant way to serve water at the table. This is a place we sit quite often. Over here, we have just the informal place to sit. We could, put some wine and nice drinks in this bowl, which is also from Skultuna, made with the brass company that I was telling you about. So that's a beautiful way to serve drinks in the evening or have coffee after dinner. And then these pillows, they're from Serena and Lily. I think the surfboard that was used this morning. My son took it out and I asked him if he could bring it back because this is where it always hangs. And that's an old vintage surfboard, but it's kind of very reflective of our life here because we do have nice, elegant dinners, but people are always surfing in the morning and coming in with their bathing suits. And so we don't live a very formal life, but we like to set the table for dinner and kind of create a little celebration out of even just a regular dinner with friends. So I think that's kind of very reflective of our life, that we're all super active and at the same time we appreciate kind of the finer things in life. So now welcome to my kitchen. This is a kitchen that we actually designed in Sweden, and I worked with the owner of the company called Kvanum Kitchen. Elizabeth was the owner, and so we designed this together and shipped it over in a container and worked together with her to design the kind of little crisscross pattern here. And as you can see, a Swedish kitchen is very simple. It's usually very neutral, light and white, and we like it that way. We didn't want to have too much busyness going on, but we did want to have kind of a fun splash of color. So I have this vintage refrigerator that kind of is this beautiful blue that reminds us how close we are to the ocean here, because we're just this steps away from the ocean and you can open the door and see it outside. So yeah, that was a fun thing to add, and kind of little blue accents, which is obviously, you can see, my favorite color. So we have those throughout the kitchen, and then your simple farmhouse sink and the brass details. I did a little piece kind of just to connect with the fireplace. So when I redid the tile here, I just put some tiles from the fireplace that kind of connected the fireplace to the kitchen. And then we have this old La Cornue stove, which is been something that we've used for years and we love, and it's a great way to cook with a gas stove. It's not very fancy as far as being able to gauge the temperatures and everything, but we've had lots of wonderful dinners using this stove. This was a little unused nook that I really didn't know what to do with, and then I decided to create this little bench and put some pillows here and sort of be able to sit and have my coffee in the morning and look out at the ocean. But after our trip to Australia, I became very enamored with Anna Spiro, who is a wonderful Australian designer. So these fabrics are from Anna Spiro. So there's the tulips and that sort of pattern there, and then this one. And I just thought that they kind of fit nicely, and I like the little crisscross that matched the crisscross in the cabinetry. So, but tulips are a very Swedish thing, as you might have noticed with our tulip candle holders and the tulips on the fabric. So I thought it was fun. But she's an Australian designer, so I really love her work, and I wanted to bring that into our kitchen. Then we love to go to the farmer's market, so I was there yesterday and got all our persimmons and lemons, fresh raspberries. And we also are right next to our little kitchen garden outside, which I have fresh herbs growing in the garden out here that I can just go out and pick the herbs. This isn't the best time of year because we're in the fall, but come February we'll have lots of lemons and oranges and flowers out here. But this is a nice place to sit and watch the sunset from our garage roof. So we kind of repurposed the old garage and made it into something that we could actually use, because you can see the ocean from here. And so we'd love to sit out here and have a drink and watch the sunset. And that's called the Five Palms. It's a very famous kind of view, which is called the Five Palms. Laguna sunsets are absolutely stunning. So for us, we never get tired of them. I've lived here pretty much all my life, back and forth from Sweden, but I have never gotten tired of watching the sunsets out here. So it's absolutely beautiful. When we designed this house, it was very much about bringing back or creating a new home with all our kind of influences and also the experiences we've been through traveling and living abroad in Europe. But I have to say, maybe this room right here is the most meaning for me. It was a room that was just used sort of as a utility room, extra kind of den. And sadly, my brother passed away about 7 years ago, quite young. And I think design is all about how can you make a space have meaning beyond just the design. So, and he was someone who helped me a lot with my design business. He worked at my store. And he also was great at finding beautiful pieces in secondhand stores and the Goodwill. And you'll see those pieces throughout the house. But he had this old sofa behind me in the garage, and it was just sitting there gathering dust. And so after he passed, I brought it up and I said, let me give it new life, and sort of for him. And so I found these beautiful fabrics, and I repurposed the sofa and made these new cushions, and then I covered this ottoman with some fabric from the old CW Stockwell collection that took over the banana palm from Palm Beach. And we had just been on a trip to Byron Bay in Australia to visit close family friends after he died. And so I kind of brought home this feeling of an island retreat where he could sort of be with me and be with us, and I could kind of continue things on for him. So this room definitely has the most meaning and is a place that feels very serene for me. I always feel like I'm close to him when I'm here, and it reminds me of his sort of beautiful view of life and seeing how you can make things out of an old Goodwill piece and give it a new place in the home. So welcome to the Palm Room. This is the room that I was telling you about that is a place that was kind of a utility room. My dad actually used it as just he was an engineer, so he just had really boring file cabinets in this room that were made of metal, and he was not very into design. So we wanted to kind of create a space that was more fun, and as I said, it was in memory of my brother. So this sofa that I found, I'm fairly sure is a Michael Taylor sofa, and he found it probably at one of the vintage shops that he frequented. And so I took this fabric and did a kind of fun little leopard print on it, and covered the sofa again. And then we took an old ottoman that I had that had been outside and sort of was faded, and put this wonderful banana palm fabric that's the old Beverly Hills fabric that C.W. Stockwell took over later from them. And then we have these little shell lamps that my brother John also found, and I thought they were so nice in the corner of the room there, looking out into the garden. The wallpaper's from Cole & Sons, and actually I did that while I was kind of going through the process of losing my brother, and it was sort of therapy for me to put this wallpaper up. So I did that shortly after he died, but it was also a therapeutic, positive thing for me to do. The lamp is from Aaron Lauder, but for another company. But I thought that the gold sort of palm leaves also fit into the room very nicely. And then on the wall here, we have one of your sort of 1950s sunburst mirrors, and I found that in Puglia in Italy, and it reminded me of my brother because he loved 1950s motifs. This is a painting of me I do some painting sometimes sort of as an extra hobby, and my teacher did this painting of me down at the beach in Laguna, so it's just a very informal, quick sketch. And then this guitar has a lot of meaning. My daughter's a singer-songwriter, so she sits often in this room and writes and composes pieces on that guitar, as well as all the others she has in Sweden. But when she comes home, that's the one that she uses. So this room is a kind of a room where you can chill out and be creative. So the floors throughout the first floor of the house were actually original. So my parents had kind of in the 70s, you know, sort of there was a big move towards New Mexican style. So that was their style. And they had a fellow from Mexico lay these floors. So you can see the little dog prints in some of the tiles. And when we renovated the house, we were doing sort of a New England Swedish style house. And we thought that really doesn't work. But as we started to furnish it with some of the pieces from Provence and Belgium, we thought, this actually is very Provençal, so it looks nice, and it's also super practical because you can just sweep the sand out of this house and just take a big mop and mop it off. You don't have to be precious about it. So we kept the floors, and they're sort of a memory to my parents because most of the house was, well, we had to take down walls due to termites and things. So we wanted to keep something, and this is what was left. So this room is a guest room that used to be my parents' bedroom. So we sort of converted it, and when we did the renovation, we were able to push the house out a little tiny bit in the back, so we got a little larger room. So we've done the bedding on this bed is from actually a wonderful Swedish designer, Beata Heyman, who lives in London, and she produced this fabric this bedding for a company I work with called Milanotti. And the idea around this fabric was that it's inspired by the old English bisque chinaware of the 1800s. And then the little piping, the blue piping, is sort of the rim around the coffee or the teacup. So I thought it was very nice. And then Milanotti makes these accent pillows, and I think that we're by the beach and that we are kind of in a subtropical climate. It's nice to have some little pop of color with the pink. This bed was one of the beds that we made, the Swedish beds, and this was one of the first beds that we sold here in America to Neiman Marcus and Williams-Sonoma Home and many others. And we did the panel so that you could pop it out and cover it with fabric. So I just covered with the remnant that I had from China Seas. It's called Lifer K, because I had done the chair in that fabric, so it was nice to be able to kind of match that. But the nice thing about these panels is you can change them out at any time. So whenever I feel like doing a new look, I just change out the panel, which is nice. And this quilt is also made by Beata Heimann, and it's called the Durham quilt. And she also was inspired by the old quilts in England, and so that's an accent. And then we have this piece is an extra little comforter that I put at the end of the bed that is from a local designer called Lala in Laguna Beach, and she does wonderful Indian prints and is one of my favorite designers. Some of the little prints on the wall are prints that I found that in a vintage store, but they reminded me of my grandmother because she was a designer in the 1920s. So she did all the drawings for, let's say, department stores in Boston. And one was called Filene's, which was a famous department store. And so she would do these kind of drawings. So I found these and they reminded me of her. So it kind of gave a little feminine look. And this piece, it's an old bureau from my grandparents, and that came from Cape Cod and would have been typical of old New England homes. So I thought that felt very nice and fit into this place very nicely. In the bathroom, we took one of the pieces that we had in the store, because this is also a Belgium wash stand, and this is blue Belgium stone. So we brought that in because it looked like a very sort of beachy accessory, and we didn't want to have anything very fancy. So this is just very simple for this bathroom. And we did all Waterworks tiles and Waterworks hardware, and so we kind of kept it very simple with the ivory accents. So we have a few little things that were from places that we visited, but this is a photo of my grandparents' house out on Pocasset in Cape Cod. And it would have been around the early 1900s. The wonderful thing about this photo is that my great-grandmother would hand color these photographs that she took, which was really unique at that time. I think they were a very artistic family, and so they were always doing crafts and sewing and making clothes, and that was one of the things she did. But also this house was built by my great-grandfather, and our home in Sweden is actually very similar to this and has the exact same windows. And I hadn't seen these photos before we bought that house in Sweden when I was pregnant with my son. So it was a very strange thing to see these photos and see my great-grandfather's house, and that he had built this house that had the exact same pattern of the windows that are in our house in Sweden. So I thought there must be some sort of good karma around that, but also it's probably related to my roots coming from New England and being attracted to that kind of look. So that picture has a lot of meaning for me, and I love to just put little flowers by the bedstands at night. I think that I do that even when it's just a regular guest coming. I think it's really important when guests stay that they have some fresh flowers in their room and a little glass of water to drink from. And then this was a kind of a little piece that we designed for the Swedish collection. And I don't know, I can take this off, but it was kind of a smart design because we thought we would make a little nightstand that you could then take the tray off and have a breakfast tray for having your breakfast in bed. And we did this many years ago, but I still think it's quite a nice little design idea. So we still have this little nightstand from the original collection back in the 90s. And then we found this lamp in a vintage shop up in Cambria. And I like it because you can make it like a night light. I don't know if I can do it, but it lights up just inside at night. So that's kind of a nice little thing when people go to sleep. I have worked so much with design, so I've been really lucky to work with very high-end glass and beautiful heritage glass and Gustavian Swedish furniture. But sometimes the things that I think that are the most fun are like when you find an old IKEA curtain and you just add a little border and you just hang it up, and it's sort of that combination of having something very elegant with something that's very simple, and something that doesn't cost that much, that you can make it look more like it's been thought through. So you don't always have to use the most expensive fabrics, and certainly going and finding old pieces that you can reupholster. That's something that I love to do. Swedish design is, for me, it's very much about light, because in Sweden we don't have that much light. So we have a summer home where we go back to, and where we actually raised our children. My husband is Swedish, Bjorn, and we raised our children, Jonathan and Julia, there. And I was always searching for light in that house. It's an old house from the 1860s. And so you don't want to cover windows up, you want to bring light in. And this house, actually, we were very, very lucky to have my Swedish father-in-law, who was an architect, and he was retired. And so he helped us to design the addition to this house, the second story, which was really wonderful for us because he brought the Swedish aesthetic into this house, which he sort of created this open stairwell that let the light come in. And he was looking, and it was a crazy story because he hadn't been here, so I just did the plan drawings and sent him photos. And so he designed this house sight unseen, but he could see by the views of the sea where the light should come in. So I think that's the most important thing in Swedish design, is light. And you'll see as we go through the house that the Swedish pieces are often painted in a very light blue-gray or cream white, and that's because it's always important for them to reflect the light in their pieces to create more sense of space. The other thing is that they often, you see space under pieces. You don't have big chunky furniture. You have quite elegant pieces with a lot of air running throughout them. So that's a little kind of the opposite of the American aesthetic, I would say. Yeah, so, and then very much focus on the heritage and handmade products that are done in a way that's been done for tradition, for generations. And you'll see a lot of those pieces as we go through the house too. So now I'll take you upstairs and show you the rest of the home. So this painting is of my grandmother, Elizabeth, and it actually looks quite formal, but it was just done for her school project when she was in art school. And it was a friend of hers that painted it, a guy that she went to school with. And my grandfather, she always told my grandfather that he was in love with her, and that he was he really wanted to be with her, so kind of keep my grandfather on his toes. But he was actually gay, so she kept that story with her till her grave, I think, to keep my grandfather in the right direction. But he always loved this painting, and they had it in San Francisco, so I kind of always keep it here as a memory of her, but also that story of how, she, something that was so simple as an art project became such an important part of their lives, and kept my grandfather loyal to her. So welcome to the upstairs living space, where we can see the ocean from here. This is the second story that we built, and was the part of the renovation that we did. And at the top of the stairs is this beautiful old Hawaiian chest, and this chest was my grandparents'. My grandfather was a lieutenant colonel in the Army, and he was stationed many places, but they were stationed in Honolulu in the 1930s. So they bought this chest, and that chest traveled with them all over the country because they were repositioned, every few years. So they went to Virginia and New England, and then finally out to San Francisco. But this was something that held all their prized possessions, so they just traveled everywhere with it. And so it kind of landed here, and I like that we have this here because whenever I look out at the ocean, I think, Hawaii is the next place, and we're very connected to it because my cousins still live there. So this is a beautiful piece that I love. And this painting was something my brother actually found. And he was a painter that painted, I believe, in the 1920s. But again, something that he found in a little Goodwill store. And I found out later that this painter was actually fairly well known. So it's just, I thought it fit beautifully over this chest here with the ocean motif that is so much a part of our life. And then this is our kind of informal living space. This is where we just sit and hang out in the evenings and watch TV. We might have a drink and look out at the ocean. And these pieces are actually very typical of what my grandmother had and what I have here and in Sweden, which is just some, these are actually old Ralph Lauren sofas, but they've been so faded and used over the years that I just did simple slip covers, and I kind of edged them in blue piping, and I can throw those in the wash. So if the dog jumps on there, or the kids, or my kids are in their 30s, but they still spill things all over the place, I can just put some spot remover on there, throw it in the wash, because I don't want to feel like I have a sofa that is too precious, especially in an area like this where we're having informal evenings and gatherings. And then this piece is one of the pieces that we brought back from Belgium, and was part of our collection in Santa Monica in our showroom. It's a beautiful old, it was actually designed by the three brothers who started the company called Flamant. Their father was an antique dealer. So he was really good at reproducing pieces, but quite authentically. So this came from an old lawyer's office. So that was originally the design from a lawyer's office. And so that's why they had the ladder so you could go up and take books out. So, and then they have these nice pull out little trays. So this would be where they would work with all their files and everything. But we use these just to put drinks on, or a book or something, when we're relaxing here. And then we've just filled it with books, things that we love. This is a basket from Nantucket, because my grandparents came from Nantucket. There's pictures of my children, and shells that we've gathered, books that we love. This is my daughter's a singer-songwriter, so this is her album cover. And that's her out in the Swedish archipelago, and that was her first album that was called Everly Foreverly. And so we have things that have meaning to us, photos of the family, and then more of the pieces from Sweden. I think the pink vase is really beautiful because it reminds me of these shells that we've gathered, so that are very beachy colors. People that I love, India Hicks, who's one of my favorite designers, and so everything. This is places that we've traveled or we've not stayed at, but we've maybe been able to see, like the Hotel Eden Rock. So these are books that I love to look through at night and sort of remind myself of all the beautiful places that you can travel. And then we have board games, because we like to play board games when we can. When we're not too busy, we try to take some time off and play board games at night. And then this is an old, this was actually a find from a vintage store. It's an old Ralph Lauren table. But what I like about it, it is so sturdy, because you could throw red wine on here, coffee, you just wipe it off. So it's very sturdy. So when we're alone, like my husband and I, when we're just having dinner, watching Netflix, we'll just sit here and eat, because it actually works as a kind of a low dining table. And then this will light a candle. This is another one of the pieces by Pierre Forchel for Skutuna. So he was the one that designed in the 1950s, and I love that piece. I think it's very classic. It reminds me of being in Palm Springs or something in the desert. So yeah, he was a great designer. And then we have also, this is a piece that's also from Belgium. It was a sideboard that we brought back with us, and it's seen its days of wear. I used to sand this down every year and refinish it, and then I realized that part of kind of European living is one thing that I notice when I sell furniture in America. The Americans always wanted to have everything very clean and perfect, and I would always say, but in Europe we let the rings from the wine glasses remain, because it reminds us of the dinners we've had. So I stopped sanding this down, and I've left all the wine rings and let it be sort of what it is, because it is a home that's lived in, and that is definitely more European. But I would always try to to make it look more American, but I thought, no, let's just let it be and have its life. Oh, and then these right here, these have a lot of meaning for me. These are photographs of my grandmother and my great-grandmother. So she was the one that took those photographs. And that was out on the Cape in probably the turn of the century, like early 1900s. And these were sailboats. My dad learned to sail from his grandfather, who was her husband. And so he was a big sailor. So he used to sail out here in Dana Point all the time because he had learned to sail back in New England. So we have a lot of New England influences. And this is my grandmother, the one in the painting with her little sister on the beach. I think it looks very beautiful. And this is her. She was very stylish. They didn't have a lot of money, but she and my grandfather always looked like they were out of a great Gatsby film. But she designed and made all her own clothes. So she had learned to sew in a French couture shop. So she taught me how to sew. And even the wedding dress that I had when I got married was a dress that she had made. So, and it was very 1920s style. So she was always able to put things together. And my grandfather also had these nice suits and shoes, but they were just very stylish. But they didn't have, they weren't wealthy people, but they were very stylish. So I learned a lot from my grandmother about how you can make a penny stretch and still have style. So this desk is also a piece from our collections. It was a sea captain's, sort of a sea captain's desk that we did for the Belgium collection. And I think it's really a beautiful place to sit and work. You see the ocean out here. It's just like you can't have a better office. And then I combined it with this old chair that my grandmother had. And that also had a kind of a dull, I can't remember, but some kind of dull fabric on it. And it had faded over the years, so I found this kind of fun palm frond fabric from China Seas and reupholstered that, so I gave it a little new life. And then, we have pictures of my parents here on the beach, and my children, and my husband and myself. And I love this book. I Married Adventure by Osa Johnson. That is just a really classic book about travel and by a Swede. And then this lampshade, I put it together with this lamp foot that my brother found. And this is from Svenskt Tenn, which is one of my favorite stores in Sweden. And I've worked with their fabrics. And Joseph Frank was the fabric maker there, and he's becoming quite popular here in America now. They've sort of started to discover him. But he was designing in the 1940s, and he did very bold and vibrant patterns that seemed sort of modern. They didn't seem like they were from the 1940s, so they've become very popular now. And this is one of the prints that he did, and it was actually a sort of to honor Estrid Eriksson, who was the founder of Svenskt Tenn. Her husband was a sea captain for the Swedish American line, so that would bring the Swedes from America back back and forth between Sweden and America. And what I thought was so fun about this is that, it shows all the places that he traveled when he was a sea captain, for the United States of America. But then he has the Mayflower, and I found out later at my grandfather's funeral that 3 of my ancestors came on the Mayflower. So they came from Plymouth, England, to Cape Cod in the 1600s. So I thought that was such a nice sort of little keepsake to have here that is from Sweden, that connects America and Sweden, and even has this little story about my family who came from over on the Mayflower. So it sort of comes full circle with my connection between Sweden and America, and how we all, even though we're all sort of different cultures, how we can connect in different ways. So that has special meaning to me. And then this piece is also from my grandparents, and it was from the Civil War. And my grandmother always told me that it came from the Civil War, so I don't know much about it, but you can see it's very scratched up. And she had it in their den, and she would always have all their books, and she and my grandfather would always have their tea on this old bench. So it's very, very sort of scuffed up, but I like it because it has such history, and that it's been traveling all over the American United States and ended up here in our little house in Laguna here. Now, this piece is a Gustavian piece that we designed for the collection, and it's a piece that we don't sell anymore, but I kept it, and we've used it a lot because what I was talking about earlier with form and function, Swedes never design anything that can't be also used for something. So we designed this so that you could take all the pillows off, and we have an 8-way tie system under here. So this can be used as a single bed. And that's very typical in Sweden. If you go to a Swedish home, you'll always see sort of a Gustavian sofa like this, that even in the kitchen, they might have the sofa in the kitchen, but somebody will stay over on that sofa that had a few too many drinks. So it's really good to be able to, and it's very comfortable. It really, you can sleep very well on this. So I covered it with like Cotton and Tout fabrics, and then I found these upholstered pieces up in a store in San Francisco on Sacramento Street, and I thought that they fit really nicely with that piece. So we sit here by the fire when it's cold, which isn't that often, but in California it can get cold at night, and so we'll cozy by the fire here. And then this is another little area. I think my husband forgot to hang up a painting that I did, but it's there. But and then I just like a little backless sofa like this that is just sort of a little lounge place where you can also sit and read a book. And then these pillows are also by that lovely company that I like called GP&J Baker, and this is called the bird hydrangea pattern, and that's something that you'll see. It's come back. It's from the 1800s, but it's been very popular in Sweden these recent years. So it's something I brought, and then I just did these little blue velvet pillows to kind of connect with the lampshades, and then I like a table with just books and memories of places that we've traveled, or books about hotels and European hotels that we've traveled to, because I'd say that's one of my biggest inspirations is hotels. My husband is always getting after me because I won't always stay in them, but I might try to stay one night at a nice hotel in Italy or France if I've read about it and I know the design is really beautiful, because I always bring back some inspiration from hotels that we stay at. So I've dragged him around to a lot of European boutique hotels, but I always say, okay, we'll do a compromise and do an Airbnb for the week, but one night at the nice little boutique hotel, and then I get my inspiration and I try to bring it home. So that's, yeah, and this is, and then this space in here, we kind of left it empty, and it's quite small, but we left it empty because we weren't quite sure what we were going to do with it, but we put a water line here, so we knew we'd have a sink. And then we met a Swedish friend who did carpentry for boat interiors. So we said that's perfect, because he would be able to take this little tiny space. So he was able to take this little space and make a beautiful bar, and he put little brass details like this that you would see on a boat. And then he was able to even put in the exact size for wine bottles, and the shelves here with the wine bottles, so exactly the size that you needed for those. And then we've added all our kind of vintage glass. And then this mirror actually was also my grandparents from New England, and I thought it kind of fit very beautifully here because it kind of reflects the sea and what we see in the ocean, and it feels like it would be on a ship. So it feels nice, and then we can sit here and you can see over into the house, which is nice. So you can see down to the dining room. So if you're up here making drinks, you can look down and see that everybody's having a nice dinner there and mix the drinks up here. So it's for a tiny space. It's provided a lot of fun for us. We like it very much. The other thing is that this little tray was from my grandparents as well. So I'm sure that is probably from the 1800s or earlier. So we like to bring those things. This is the kind of a cool little tray that to me, it's kind of a mid-century tray, but I think it's also another find from a secondhand store. I think we try to use as many things as we can from things that we've found and can repurpose rather than going out and buying new things from a store. I think if I can reupholster something, I will, and if I can reuse a tray, I will, rather than go buy a new tray. So in general. So one of the things I love to do, because I live in such a beautiful place, is try to get out and paint when I can. I work a lot, so I don't have time, but at least once a week I try to get out and paint with a group of friends. And so these paintings are from little local scenes from around here. This is down from the keel right down below our house. And that piece is from Divers Cove, which is up in North Laguna. And I really find that time being out and painting and looking at the colors here is sort of a necessary little break from all the administrative work that I do every day. And it always gives me a little burst of energy to be out there and seeing how beautiful it really is, because we don't take the time to stop in our lives and savor the moment sometimes when we get kind of focused on work. So this is it sort of forces me to get out there and do that. So I bring these home every week and hang them on the walls. So this is our primary bedroom, and it's up on the second story here, so we have views out to the ocean, which is really lovely. This piece is a piece from my grandparents that was brought back from New England, and has that kind of captain style look to it in the mahogany that I think is just very fitting with this room. And we have some photos here that are special to us. This is our wedding photo. We were married on my husband's farm in Sweden. And so we have a photo from that, and then photos of our children and us on different beach trips. And this is my husband when he was little. And then this is also an unknown painter, but I just loved it. And it's also a vintage find. And so we've combined these heritage pieces or heirloom pieces from my grandparents with pieces that we produce. And this is an island bed that we did for our showroom store back when we had that in Santa Monica. And this always kind of reminds me of being in a place like the Bahamas. And I like to find old prints from books and frame them. So these are some tropical plants that kind of fit in with that island theme. And I've done the bedding is also from Beata Hyman, the designer in Sweden, or she works in London, but she's from Sweden. But she was inspired by the Chinazuri ceramic ware, porcelain ware from England. And so that's how this pattern was kind of developed. And I thought it fit nicely with what we're doing, because we've always had these traditional pieces like the Swedish Gustavian pieces, and that's the same era. So this piece is one that we produced ourselves, and that is from the same era as the bedding was inspired by, you know, even though they were inspired by china plates of that era. This Gustavian bureau is also inspired by the design of the 18th century. And I've combined that with some beautiful Christopher Spitzmiller lamps that are also vintage, that we found and are in the duck egg blue that I love, and I think fits so nicely into a beach room, as well as the paintings that we have here. This is probably up somewhere in Big Sur, which is a place that we love to visit. And then this little sketch is from the south of France, also found in a vintage store. And then I like to always have flowers in every room, so I found this little vase, which is also in the same duck egg finish as the Christopher Spitzmiller lamps. Then the quilt that we have on here is also by Beate Heimann, and that's the Durham quilt, but it's in the whipped cream kind of color. But I think that it fits very well here at the beach. And then, you know, the thing that I was talking about doing something simple. So these are just IKEA curtains. And I've always thought about doing very formal curtains in this bedroom, but I thought that's really not us. So I found these curtains at IKEA. They just have the little loops that, you know, you would remind you of being on a ship. And then I found some Ralph Lauren trim, and I just sewed it on. So for me, this is simple. You can just throw them in the wash. You know, someday I may have some really formal curtains here, but I don't think that I actually will, because it fits our lifestyle. It's more just being more informal. This little piece is from Serena and Lily on the floor. And then this is one of the pieces that we design as well. So it's a nice sort of bed. At the end of the bed, to have a nice little ottoman, I think is always nice to be able to throw your clothes on at the end of the day, and the dog can jump up onto the bed from there. So that's practical. And then most of the lighting in the house, because I worked so many years in High Point when I was running my furniture company, and we had a factory there as well. I worked a lot with visual comfort, so we had our showroom right next to theirs, and so I would always be able to pick up nice lamps. So almost all the lighting in the house is from Visual Comfort, because we work so closely together. And then this little piece is another piece that was my grandmother's, and also came from New England, and I love the little inlay here, but it's very it kind of goes well with the island bed and the bureau that we have here. And then, you know, I did do the same thing. I find the old shell prints in old Curioso books, and then you can just take them out and frame them, and you've made a nice piece of art. So we're not people that spend a lot of money on buying, you know, really expensive art, because we try to find things that just speak to us. So I don't really, for me, it's not important that it's a well-known artist. It's just that it speaks to you and gives you happiness and makes you feel a little sense of joy, rather than somebody that is well-known painted it. Home to me is definitely not living in a catalog. For me, our home, and our home in Sweden as well, is a place where we constantly have dinners and gatherings with friends, and our children and their friends and their partners, and even our colleagues. And so home is a place that you can create an environment where people come and they feel very much like they can relax and be themselves. And for us, it is not unusual to set the table really beautifully, because we have all these beautiful Swedish pieces that we can use, but we use them in a very informal way, even though we set the table elegantly. So I think a home is just a place where you really use it, and I like to have people running in from the beach. We're only a few minutes from the beach here, and so we're very active, and we all paddleboard and surf, and so it's a place where you can come with your sandy feet and just sweep it out and not worry about it. You want the sofas are meant for dogs to jump on and for people to relax. So it's not a place that is set up for just living in a cookie cutter kind of box, for me anyway.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.